Qingcheng, Lijiang Hotel. At 9 o'clock in the evening, a birthday party is being held in the inner hall on the third floor of the hotel. Unlike the brightly lit outer hall, the inner hall has no bright lights, but it is not too dazzling. The lights are mixed and matched with a variety of dark colors, projected on the exquisitely decorated walls and carpets, with the sweet jazz music, giving the party a full atmosphere. Ruan, I heard that you went on a blind date 2 days ago. When Miss Zhang, the protagonist of this birthday party, asked this, Ruan and Anzhen slightly lifted the glass and took a sip of wine in his mouth. The pungency spread across the taste buds, and she almost choked on hearing this. Why did she pass out on the back foot after her front foot phased? Yes, little birthday star, the news is so good. Ruan Anzhen swallowed the wine with lingering fear and turned his head. You can know if I have a blind date in the United States. Me brother knows him, he came to my house to mention you today, and it happened to be heard by me. Zhang Yi opened his eyes suddenly, lowered his voice slightly, and became excited for several degrees. You didn't deny it. So it's true. Indeed, just a few days ago, Ruan Anan was the first blind date in her life. Although it failed. And this was not her willingness, to put it bluntly, she just followed the elders to eat a meal and met someone. But if you have to talk about it, this model is completely fine when it is called a blind date. How is it? Is there any drama? Did you look right? After launching several questions, Zhang Yi added, this man praised you a lot with my brother. Ruanan's blind date, the eldest son of the Cheng family, had a good relationship with her brother, who belonged to a brother who could talk about everything, and the two did not avoid her while chatting. At first, Cheng Yi praised quite secretly, but later I didn't know why it was up. The more he praised, the more ridiculous he was, and he was almost a fairy. At this time, Ruanan tilted his head slightly, his expression seemed to be organizing language. She has a small face, and her features are pure and beautiful. The off-shoulder dress completely reveals the swan neck and collarbone, and she holds a wine glass in one hand. With slender wrists and a sharp contrast between the porcelain white complexion and the dark red liquid, this scene is particularly attractive. From the time she met, Zhang Yi knew that she was a beauty, but she didn't expect to see her in 3 years, and her beauty was even better. No wonder Master Cheng came up. Zhang Yi stared at the fairy face in front of him. After waiting for a few seconds, the fairy finally opened her mouth and replied one by one in the order of the questions, nothing. Nothing is right. It's not my dish. Zhang Yi didn't hold back and rolled her eyes. There is no eye on it. This sentence again. The two of them have known each other for 10 years. I remember Ruanan had a nickname called Lawn Harvester at the time of junior high school and high school. According to statistics, she is the girl who has confessed to all kinds of grass in the most grass-level grass school. At that time, Ruanan refused to wait for a lot of grass for the class grass-level grass school grass, and it was almost the same reason. No eyes, no call. Can't look down on the face, can't fall in love. As the best friend of this lawn harvester for 10 years, Zhang Yi knows that, although Ruanan looks like a fairy daughter, he is a serious-faced dog in his bones. The beauty who usually sees the aesthetics can be obsessed with the old for a long time, but it is very tricky for men. You said that you went to Harvard to study for the past few years. Even if the handsome foreign guys don't match up, so many domestic boys still don't poke you. But obviously he is a lifetime honorary member of the Appearancist Association, but he has never met his favorite face. It seems pretty miserable. Thinking about it this way, Zhang Yi suddenly accepted the complaint. She joked casually, and I think the man who can make you look right is probably not born yet. Ruan, wait for him patiently. Ruanan took the conversation naturally. Well, what then? Hey! What then? Ruanan dragged his tone and said slowly and leisurely, I'll wait for him to grow up. I'm old now. Zhang Yi blinked, Hey! Ruanan, for a romantic one-night stand, I had to run with the ball. What kind of sand sculpture poem is this? Why does it rhyme? Wrong, Yao Yaling, this is a idiot trouble to take away. Zhang Yi's expression of you are sick, no, Harvard still teaches you liquors? Are you drinking too much, do you want to eat some peanuts to wake up? Ruonanan indeed drank a little too much. Zhang Yi's reaction made him feel very good, and he couldn't help laughing for a long time. Ruonanan drank a few more drinks with the birthday star, but saw that more and more people around him wanted to talk to Zhang Yi, and because of the presence of a stranger like her, it was not easy to come forward, so he had to go here again and again. Look. That way, I can't wait to give her a voice transmission. You have occupied Miss Zhang enough, it's not our turn, right? Ruonanan also felt a little boring after receiving such gazes. She put the empty cup on the waiter's tray and said, "Baby, I will withdraw first. The jet lag has not reversed since I got off the plane yesterday. I have to do something tomorrow. I will spend time with you tomorrow." Play. That's all right, you can go back and rest. Zhang Yi paused, but you have just returned to China for more than 10 hours, what can you do tomorrow? Ruonanan hesitated for a while, and thought that this would be a public project in the near future, but there was nothing to say. He drew his hair together, and wrote lightly, "Go donate a building to see." Puff. Ruonanan slept until noon the next day, full of blood, resurrected and refreshed, according to the agreed time, got up and drove to Sea University after dinner. Qingcheng has always distinguished 4 seasons, and it is early autumn near September. The wind is tingled with the slight coolness, and it is comfortable and suitable even in the afternoon. Sea University has a century-old history. Despite the fierce competition among elite schools, it has never fallen out of the top 3 in the country in terms of comprehensive university rankings. There are also a number of ace majors that are firmly ranked first in the country. For example, finance and the computer that Ruonanan studied at the time. This time, Fanlin is about to invest in cooperation with Sea University, which also belongs to the computer field. Ruonanan has never liked to study hard. She is the kind of student who doesn't want to repeat the questions once she knows a little bit of knowledge. Zhang Yi, the senior gang of high school, spends more time tutoring than she does on her own. Just as free as an unlearned student, but with a performance that is firmly in the top of the school rankings. Ruonanan was admitted to C major and chose his favorite computer department. I thought I could have a happy life for 4 years, but who knew what happened suddenly, so I transferred to Harvard to study finance halfway through my freshman year. But her reading was a little bit different from everyone's expectations. Ruonanan has always had good grades and no one cares about it. But at Harvard, there is basically no idol like her. Because she really doesn't like the compact learning atmosphere of prestigious schools, her thinking is different from others. With the belief of jumping early, finishing work, dying early, and overbearing, Ruonanan has chosen to review day and night, trying her best to earn more credits. After studying hard for 3 years and getting a degree that someone else could only get in 6 years, he returned to China successfully. Although it was hard, it was a profit for her to suffer 3 years of crime. A familiar figure appeared at the school gate. Ruonanan retracted his thoughts, smiled and greeted him. Although she used to be a student, she came here as a representative of the investor of Fanlin after all. She shook hands and greeted several people who appeared at the school gate. Ruonanan saw the face of the old principal who had not seen him in 3 years. A smile appeared on his face. Principal Li is in her early 50s, with a standard Mediterranean hairstyle. He smiles amiably, and calls her with a long voice, "Xia Ruonanan smiled all of a sudden, "Hey? President, do you remember me? What you said?" Principal Li stared at her disapprovingly, "My proud disciple, I remember everything." After all, Ruonanan has indeed been his proud student for a year. Although President Li is the principal, he is actually a very good old professor in the Department of Computer Science. At that time, there was a nationwide computer competition for college students. In order to compete for the first place with F in the next city, he personally guided him, and finally led C to win the championship. Ruonanen was a member of the final team at that time. She laughed more happily. It would be a great honor for me to be remembered by you. Ruonanen came by himself, dressed very casually. The people who followed C University first saw the pre-finalized site for the construction of the school, then walked around, and finally went to the building to prepare for the final signature stamp. The details have been drawn up a long time ago, so the itinerary is very simple. Ruonanen has only been away for 3 years. For most of the school's environment, I remember that the principal's office is on the top floor. After entering the teaching building, she pointed to the toilet, "You go up first, and I will be there soon." Everyone understood. First she stepped into the elevator. Ruonanen turned and went into the toilet. After solving the physiological needs, I took a photo in front of the mirror while washing my hands. Before going out today, she put on sunscreen on her face, which is basically plain. It may be that the quality of sleep last night was good. Looking in the mirror, the face is white and shiny, and the eyes are bright and translucent. Coupled with the light casual clothes, it doesn't seem to be inconsistent with the university campus atmosphere. When Ruonanen opened the bathroom door and came out, he found that there were a few more girls in the empty corridor just now. A high ponytail, a big wave, and a twist braid. A few people gathered by the elevator wall, obviously not seeing her, talking very fast and attentively discussing their topics. Ruonanen walked to the elevator a few steps and pressed the button, and these people exclaimed one after another. "Gao Mai, that boy was so handsome just now. Which department is he from? How come I have never seen this character? No, how could I not know that our school has such a superb quality? Big wave, you let me slow. Damn it. Oh, I just looked at him Facetophus, Facetophus. The face is invincible. Twisted Braid's voice is quieter, it can grow like that, could it be from the film school next door?" Gao Mai immediately retorted, "How could it be from another school? It's only on the 30th. Obviously, it's a student who came to pack up in advance like us. I really want a handsome chat." Big Wave poked the twist braid, "My dear, you put on makeup today, otherwise you go and ask for it." You could hear the excitement in the voices of several people beyond words. Ruon, Jiji body Yangu, and An's heart moved. The best? Handsome? Really, handsome like that? At this moment, that emoticon pack can express her feelings very well. But business matters. After a short curiosity, the elevator has reached the first floor. After signing the documents and saying goodbye to the old principal, Ruonanen went downstairs. I had forgotten the vignette when I was waiting for the elevator just now, and I was about to wander around the school for a while, but I didn't expect to turn a corner at the end of the corridor, and when I was leaving the teaching building, she was hit by a scene where she was suspected of having a conversation. Facing her was the twisted braid that had just been makeup in the big wave of her mouth. Twisted Braid raised her head, her face was dumbfounded, her cheeks flushed, her eyes were obviously straight, and she was standing in front of, needless to say, it must be the extreme product that a few people wanted to hook up before. Although the person turned his back completely, Ruonanen couldn't help but glanced at the figure as he walked over. At this glance, he couldn't look away. Very tall, wearing white clothes and black trousers, it is obviously a very ordinary dress, but it highlights the proportion of the body that attracts the eye. The shoulder line of the white shirt fits the shoulders, and the figure is thin and long. Further down, although the shirt is not self-cultivating, you can see that the waist is tight and narrow in the movements of the hands and feet, the legs wrapped in the fabric are long and straight, and the buttocks are. He wanted to blow the hooligan whistle. Just such a slight back view makes people feel very pleasing to the eye. Stopping his terrifying thoughts in time, Ruonanen withdrew his gaze. Everyone is a sane adult, no matter how curious it is impossible to look at other people's faces in such a situation where it is obviously necessary to contact us. But nothing else, just this figure. It's not an exaggeration to call it the best. As he passed by, Ruonanen vowed that she only slowed down a little bit. Finally, she looked at this waist, this leg, and this hip with admiration. When she had already evacuated to the entrance of the teaching building, she heard a particularly clear voice suddenly in the silence. "Sorry," the man said, "don't add stranger WeChat. Since there are still 2 days before school officially starts, there are not many students on the campus of C University. Most of them came back early to collect the dormitory and put their luggage. They were scattered on the campus avenue in 2s and 3s. There are 2 neat rows of big trees next to them, the emerald green leaves have not yet been stained with autumn colors." Ruonanen looked around at the surrounding scenes, turning around on the campus, still lingering in his mind about the back figure of the superb body. Finally, "I couldn't help calling up WeChat, holding a file bag in one hand, typing with one hand and sending a message to Zhang Yi, Ruonanen and Ruan." Zhang Yi returned quickly. "Zhang Yi doesn't eat ginger, Ruonanen and Ruonanen went on to play. The last word Cai just typed C. Ruonanen suddenly felt that he was enveloped in a shadow, and there seemed to be a person within a very close distance. But at this moment, the strength of moving forward was completely unstoppable, and she could only watch and let herself slam into the past with a standard gesture of touching porcelain. The body collided with a slight muffled noise, followed by the sound of a folder falling to the ground. She slammed into it so straight, and the impact at that moment was not big or small. But what is certain is that the opponent's chassis is firm from beginning to end, and it hasn't moved at all, as if it hadn't been affected at all. On the contrary, she felt visibly bounced, and she leaned back slightly unconsciously. Ruonanen suddenly thought of it when his eyes touched the side of the white shirt. Oh, it was the handsome with a super nice voice. The handsome man reacted extremely quickly. At the moment of the collision, he almost reached out and grabbed her arm like a conditioned reflex, and quickly let go after she recovered her balance. Only a few seconds before and after. "After all, I lowered my head and typed and didn't see the way." After regaining his senses, Ruonanen apologized before raising his head. "Sorry, it was originally very smooth." But after seeing his face clearly, he paused. "It's okay, right? And, the sound is getting smaller. The man grows very tall, so he has to hang his eyes halfway when he meets her. His eyelids are thin, his eyelashes are long and curled, and the shape of his eyes is particularly delicate. The hair is pure black, but the eyes are lighter, dyed with a soft and moist color in the afternoon sun. Although wearing a white shirt, the complexion is still very obvious cold white, the jawline is beautiful, and the outline is deep and handsome. It's like a delicate and perfect painting by the creator, no more strokes or fewer strokes won't work." While breathing, Ruonanen was in a daze and smelled his body clean and clear. With the collision just now, the file bag she was holding fell to the ground. Ruonanen hadn't moved yet, and the person in front of her was one step ahead of her. Bent down and stretched out his hands in one go, then handed her the file bag. The hand holding the file bag just appeared in her vision. The nails are clean, the fingers are long and white, the finger bones are thin, and the raised wrist bones on the wrist are delicate and beautiful. Even the hands are so beautiful. Ruonanen took the document and raised his eyes again. "Thank you." "No thanks," the commander forced. It was the very sweet voice, listening at close range, as if there were a little more nasal sounds, and the intonation seemed a little lazy. Then he suddenly cocked his lips and said, "Classmate, remember to watch the road." Looking at him at such a close distance, Ruonanen was blanked by the slight smile on his face. The sound is like a clear spring, and people are like a jade. Ruonanen looked at him, for the first time in more than 20 years, feeling that his heartbeat was suddenly speeding up and still changing. The feeling is hard to describe, like a pebble thrown into a clear stream, or like a clear sky after the rain. Or to be simple and rude. In love. At 9 o'clock that night, inside the VIP box of Yuanzhong Private Club. After listening to the woman on the opposite side for half an hour and using a variety of non-repeating adjectives and exaggerated modifiers to describe that afternoon's cocked butt. As a listener, Zhang Yi only grasped one important point. So, Ruonanan, she paused, and asked incredulously, you went to the C University donation building today, and you fell in love with a college student. This short sentence actually summed up her this afternoon very well, and Ruonanan immediately nodded, yes. Yin Yuan, who has been silent next to her, chuckled, look at what you are doing. This was originally a sister party for Ms. Jiang Ganzhang Yi's birthday the day before yesterday. Ruonanan left after half a jet lag, while Yin Yuan rushed to make a programming report at home. How could Miss Jiang's two best sisters be so weak? So when the two sides were all right, they set a time to make an appointment for her to make up for a birthday. But because of the affair in the afternoon, this party finally became Ruonanan's banging meeting. Yin Yuan laughed enough and asked, what about then? Ruonanan, what then? It's the follow-up. You won't just let him go like this? Did you ask for the name? Do you want to contact her? Yin Yuan looked at her up and down, and smiled. The man refuses, right? Ruonanan immediately shook his head, I didn't want that. Then I saw Zhang Yi and Yin Yuan both having "are you stupid" expressions, and then explained, you two listen carefully. Didn't I say that? I just saw him reject others, then how could I still send people away? That's true. But later he asked how to get to the affiliated hospital of our school, as if he was going to visit his classmates. I showed him the way and chatted a few more casually. I learned that he is studying finance. At that time, the spirit was too high, and the adrenal hormones soared. I didn't think so much about what I said. Ruonanan pondered for a while, and suddenly hissed, hey? But when he goes to school at C University, why doesn't he know where the hospital is? Maybe I haven't been. Yin Yuan, who is also a big C, said of course, there are very few people going to the affiliated hospital of the headquarters. Everyone goes to the school infirmary when they are sick. I didn't remember the way to the hospital. It's normal. Those are not the main points. The CP of the female president of Dojin and pure male college students is my love. Zhang Yi smiled badly, and said with a sigh of relief, I am optimistic about you, baby. Ruonanan, the female president, there is still some time before I officially take office. I am just a female college student who just graduated now. She muttered a little unconvincedly, it sounds like I'm very old. As soon as the voice fell, the other two laughed together, and the girls' clear and pleasant voices resounded through the box. When they had enough laughter, the three of them drank the bottom of the goblet. Yin Yuan suddenly said, oh, by the way, you two have heard that the Gu family has been focusing on overseas all these years, and it seems to be coming back recently. Ruonanan was not sober after drinking, so he stared at him and didn't know why. Gu's family? Which Gu's family? Zhang Yi was even more shocked, the only Gu's family who can challenge the Lin family. When she said this, Ruonanan reacted. The Lin family and Gu family in Qingcheng are two giants, not only in Qingcheng, but also across the country. The two businesses have grown bigger and bigger, and overseas expansion is essential. In these years, the Gu family has deliberately focused on overseas. The domestic market is slightly inferior to the Lin family. However, in the overseas market, the Lin family is always one step ahead, and the competition is in full swing. Ruonanan always heard his father scold Gu's father, but he really didn't understand his grandson, so he expressed a little curiosity, what is the comeback method you said to come back? Yin Yuan, I just heard that their Gu's family has been busy with the foreign area, right? Your grandfather has been pressed hard in the country. Recently, it seems that I want to take care of it. After a pause, she continued, and some people say that young Master Gu has returned to China. The second son of Gu. Zhang Yi also drank high, with an exaggerated tone. I heard my cousin say that Gu is the most handsome son she has ever seen in the circle. She has read countless men, and she can have such a comment. It's really not easy. It's not just your cousin, everyone who has seen Gu blow him to the sky. Yin Yuan sighed with emotion, and not only is she good looking, she is also spoiled in Gu's family with great human ability. I remember that cheap sister Ruan also likes the Gu's little son. Ruanan cut disdainfully. Puff. Ruan, haven't you heard a word? Yin Yuan said with a smile, second young Master Gu, the dream of hundreds of ladies in Qingcheng. Zhang Yi laughed. It's still a dream, vulgar. Ruanan curled his lips, without any waves in his heart. Anyway, no matter how handsome he is, he can't be as handsome as his butt. The is pure and beautiful, and it is completely different from these young boys who have been immersed in the drunk and gold fans since childhood. They are all heaven and earth, no comparison. Okay, your cocked is the best looking, then you want to talk about how you plan to get it. Zhang Yi joked, don't, keep it. Ruanan made a gesture to beat her, fuck you. Of course not. On the second day after drinking with Zhang Yi and Yin Yuan, Ruanan was sober and thought of President Li's last invitation yesterday. After sobering up, she gave an initiation, and immediately made a call. The conscience of heaven and earth. It is true that Ruanan was stunned by the sky at first sight, but she was right, but she never thought of supporting him. She has her own way. Since ancient times, love can't be retained, only routines can win people's hearts. September 1st, the school day. When Ruanan was a student of computer science 3 years ago, he visited the Department of Economics and Management to participate in a symposium. Although I forgot the specific content, I still remember the approximate location of the teaching building. Standing at the door of the amphitheater again as a student, I couldn't help but sigh. It was early and the classroom was very empty. When she walked to the last row and sat down, she found that there were several unread messages in the WeChat group chat. This group is the only WeChat group that Ruanan hasn't blocked. She and Zhang Yi Yunyuan have formed it for many years. It was said that the friendship of the three women didn't end well, which really didn't work for the three of them. However, unlike the friendship of the three ferromagnetics, the names of this group have undergone some changes. From Lovely Nest to a Little Fairy Night Talking Group to a Bibaji Gathering Place. At the beginning, it still looked alike, but after the change of dynasties, it has completely changed the style of painting today. Called the Smelly Sister Legion. Ruanan put his fluttering backpack aside, and clicked on the group chat of Smelly Sister Army. She previously posted her position in the group, and briefly said her intention. Yin Yuan is not married, Ruanan. Don't say it, it's really because of love. Ruanan couldn't help being a little excited when he thought of the person he was about to see. He didn't care about the ridicule of the two of them, and replied calmly. The two naturally refused to accept, and launched a unique secret attack. Ruanan was chatting one after another in the Smelly Sister group, and glanced at the door of the classroom almost every 2 seconds. Although she has not seen the figure she wanted to see, the expectations that she was about to overflow in her heart did not diminish at all. Until a familiar voice came from behind. Classmate, is anyone here? Not too big or too small, with a hint of nasal sound that didn't wake up. It looks like the empty valley stream flowing past your ears, which is particularly pleasing and recognizable. Ruanan froze for a second. Turned back quickly. Similar to what he first saw that day, his dress is still very simple, white and black trousers, no extra patterns or embellishments. Ruanan's seat was set against the wall. Behind him were a few wide-open windows in the lecture theatre. The morning sun shrouded him behind him, as if he was plated with gold rims on his thin and tall silhouette. I haven't seen it for 2 days, the handsome face seems to be even better. Just stop here, and the 8 classics interpret the 4 words of white and beautiful. Ruonanan was caught off guard by his sudden appearance, not to mention that he was still smiling at her. She opened her eyes wide, from a bottom-up angle, seeing the corners of his lips slightly curled up and her tone of voice rising. She seemed to ask casually, "If no one is there, did I sit? If there is no one, I'll sit down." 2 seconds later, Ruonanan heard his cry. Then he watched his long legs step into the seat, and with the movements, the shirt was fitted to reveal the graceful waistline, and then she was dreaming of her if he went down again. "Thank you the day before yesterday." Alice interrupted her thoughts, turned her head and said, "I am an exchange student and just came here, so I am not familiar with it." The day before yesterday, she meant to show him the way. Ruonanan didn't expect that he would start a conversation so bluntly, and subconsciously said, "I also exchanged." He was visibly stunned. "So are you?" Ruonanan nodded. "She has difficulties, she has no choice." The two looked at each other, and he fixedly looked at her for a while. His eyes were shining. He suddenly laughed, and said every word, "What a coincidence! I don't know if it is an illusion." I always feel that he bit these 2 words very meaningfully. Ruonanan pretended to be calm. Yes, it's a coincidence." I said so. At this moment, her heart was overwhelmingly retorting. "Coincident? Do not. You and I are strangers, relying on my routines. 1. Point. And also, do not. Coincidence." After being seated, Ruonanan found that the general manager seemed to be busy or had important messages to reply. He was basically looking at the phone and swiping his fingertips on the screen occasionally. Ruonanan sent a message in the group and pretended that he was also very busy, but couldn't help but glance at his side one at a time. And such an inexplicable atmosphere in the embarrassment continued until the sign-in book came from the front row, and he seemed to be finally busy. Ruonanan knew this book, and it was issued by C. Tung. Some teachers find it cumbersome to roll their names, so they can use their notebooks in class to let students sign on their sign-in notebooks. At the beginning, Ruonanan had a good time with Yin Yuan, and she was looking for someone to sign on her behalf when she couldn't get up in the morning class. A black gel pen was pinned on the notebook, and it was passed to the handsome Bina. There was a girl in front of him. Ruonanan has been observing, so he clearly saw the girl staring at him in a moment. The whole person was stunned. But as if he hadn't seen it, he took it naturally and nodded very politely, "Thank you." With these words, the girl's face was almost red, and she stammered back, "No, you're welcome." Then she turned around and began to violently shake the arms of her sister next to her. "Although I can't hear clearly what was said, I can guess it too." Ruonanan sighed inwardly. If this is the ancient times, the proper confidant will harm the water and the country's enchanting concubine. Ruonanan turned his head and saw the enchantress write down her name very quickly. She was almost unable to see the sign. He didn't recognize what he wrote when he pushed the notebook in front of her. "Gu, Ju?" It may be that her movements stopped, and a smiling voice came from her ear, "What's wrong? My words are hard to read." "Hey!" Ruonanan returned to his senses and immediately shook his head, No, I'm watching." Her voice was a little uncertain. "The second word in your name is the decision." "No, the formula of the formula." Earlier, because he couldn't read his pen clearly, Ruonanan said "Oh," picked up the pen and began to write his own. And Guju seemed to imitate her behavior, that she had been staring at him just now. Ruonanan didn't look up, and he could feel his gaze on him. After writing, Ruonanan passed it to the people in the next row. There were a row of boys and girls sitting over there, who were chatting with a smile. When she handed it over, the whole face turned away. The hot people talking over there suddenly seemed to be dumb by pressing the pause button. But she didn't pay attention. Ruonanan turned around after passing it, and met Guju's eyes. "My name is Ruonanan." Ruon is. She originally wanted to say Ruonan is and Ruonan is XXisn, but the science student Ruan Swiba lacks vocabulary. For a while, she can't remember what beautiful phrases her surname can make. In the end, I had no choice but to go dry, Nan, then when with the surname, An is safe. She reacted after speaking. Damn, what kind of earthy taste is this self-introduction? Still facing her cocked butt. Is this forcing people to buy station tickets? The person I may be facing is too special, so those extremely subtle little psychology have been infinitely magnified. Ruonanen deeply regretted the water poured out. But just when she wanted to change the subject, the person in front of her suddenly smiled. Ruonanen, it sounds good. Ruonanen was taken aback. Seeing him is a very light smile, clear and gentle. Then he felt a little uncontrollable fever on his face. In fact, during the two meetings, Ruonanen hadn't spoken much to him, but both were deeply impressed. His speech speed is not hurried or slow, and his intonation does not fluctuate too much, but because his voice is so good, it is really a pleasure to listen to it. Especially when calling her name, it's almost. She didn't finish thinking about what she was thinking, but she heard another voice in her ear, Ruonanen. Before Ruonanen raised his head, a hand suddenly appeared in front of him. The palm prints are shallow, the phalanx is thin and long, and the hand looks good. She looked at the owner of the hand puzzledly. Guju stretched out his hand on the table and said naturally, "Can you borrow me a pen?" Who are the two people in the last row? I haven't seen it before, will it be an elective? Are you stupid? This course is a major course in the Department of Economics and Management. Where does it come from? That's even more weird, even if it's not in our department, it's already famous in the school when you grow up like this, could it be exchanged from another school? Ruonanen focused on talking to Guju, completely ignoring the sight of the surroundings, and turned his head unconsciously until the sound of the teacher's lecture came. Naturally, I didn't know the discussion of the two in the classroom, nor did I know that after half an hour, the hot post on the C forum became popular. Number coordinates Economics and Management Department of Finance class. This year's junior came two super good-looking exchange students. It's simply a mountain with great beauty. Number after the class started, PPT was projected on the big screen. Ruonanen probably took a look. She had learned the textbooks mentioned above for this semester 2 years ago. It's just that the original English version she learned at the time, here is the Chinese translation. The teacher's teaching style is more rigorous, and it belongs to the style that doesn't interact with classmates. The first class is mainly to comb the knowledge lines of the science period. Not many people listen carefully, and there are always discussions. Ruonanen originally thought that Guju had borrowed her pen, and he must have listened carefully to the lecture, and Guju didn't bring any bags, and neither had a pen, nor a notebook. She thought that Guju would have to ask her to borrow a notebook soon. But half an hour passed. She really didn't expect it. He borrowed the pen, actually just to hold it in his hand. Ruonanen was hesitant to speak several times, probably Guju also noticed it, and explained with a smile, "When I was in high school, I was always impatient when attending classes. I didn't know when to start, so it became a habit to change pens." While he was talking, his hands didn't stop. First, go around the thumb, then clockwise and then counterclockwise, and sometimes take turns from each finger. A black thin tube pen shuttled back and forth between his white fingers, and it was performing some tricks. Ruonanen's yin of Yangkong is actually not only on the face, but also on the figure, such as the legs, waist, hands, and hips. They are all within range. So watching such a beautiful hand perform a pentoning in front of me is also a kind of enjoyment. After another half an hour, the first class started, and the teacher dismissed early. When Guju returned her pen, he suddenly asked, "Is there a supermarket near the teaching building?" "Okay. I'm thirsty and didn't bring water. Maybe it's because school just started. When I came just now, I saw that the vending machine hadn't filled up." Ruonanan suddenly realized, there is a supermarket, but I remember it is far away, the one that is closer is the drink shop, Havel milk tea and coconut milk, would you like to drink it? Ha, what in Yale? Guju thought he had misheard a word just now, and was about to ask again, but Ruonanan suddenly laughed. When she laughed, there were two small pear vortexes on her cheeks, and her big eyes curled up like a pretty little fox, cute and cunning. These stores are probably the major features of C. She said, my friend who was a graduate student told me, oh wait. This is not a lie, Yin Yuan is now a graduate student of C University, starting her first year of study. C Dolly actually has a lot of milk tea shops. It may be that the competition is too fierce. Some try to give themselves eye-catching names. In addition, the rate of students going abroad to study for graduate school is very high. After she finished speaking, she flipped neatly. Opened a brand new notebook, slender fingers brushed a few words with the brush, and then put it in front of him. Hey, so there are these. Guju looked down. Hover milk tea Sitanfu supermarket coconut milk Guju. The first two do not need to be introduced at all. Ruonanan pointed to the coconut dew and said, this is a specialty selling coconut milk. Gujweishong said willingly, it's kind of a problem. After the comment, he did not look again, raised his eyes and asked, which one do you like best? Hover, my friend took me to drink. His pearls are delicious. Ruonanan hasn't drunk it for 3 years, and she still misses it a bit. Acknowledge the way. Okay. Then you take me, I invite you. And such good things? Ruonanan was taken aback, why invite me? Guju seemed to have never expected that she would ask such a sentence, and raised his eyebrows, take money. Just now when get out of class was about to end, she was still thinking about how to make a polite invitation that was not embarrassing or objectionable to continue this fate. Unexpectedly, fate ran by herself with long legs. What a cost to lead the way. When the weather is clear and the rain stops, I think I can do it again. Ruonanan immediately rebaated the gongs and drums with joy. She moved neatly and received the book and pen in the fluttering bag, and followed Guju out of the back door of the classroom. The corridor was a bit noisy, and her head was full of cocked ass, I want to buy me a milk tea and ha 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 crossed back and forth. She didn't know what to say to Guju, and she was full of enthusiasm. When he was waiting for the elevator, Ruonanan stood still and opened WeChat, tapping on the keyboard frantically with his fingers, sending his screams to the smelly sister army, but just as she immersed herself in typing, she didn't see the Guju beside her and took out the phone. The phone vibrated silently, and Guju picked it up. A familiar voice came from the other end, Mr. Gu, is the video conference scheduled to start in half an hour as usual? Guju lowered his eyes and glanced at the person next to him. The girl lowered her head to look at the phone, her slender fingers quickly tapped on the keyboard, not knowing what she was typing, her eyes curled up, and even Liwar laughed. Well, Mr. Gu. Guju half leaned against the wall and looked at her with a lazy brow. He slightly lowered his voice and replied, no, let's decide. After class, see Campus Forum. Number coordinates Economics and Management Department of Finance class. This year's junior came 2 super good-looking exchange students. It's simply a mountain with great beauty. Number 1 litter, dear sisters and sisters, I thought today was a miserable school day, but I didn't expect that the first class would shock my whole family. These 2 in our class are exchange students. It's just speculation. Everyone knows that this year's Game Cup is here. This year's exchange students received more than usual. I really took it, the gods go down to Fanba, don't talk nonsense, take pictures. 2L. WOC. I will submit my transfer application tomorrow. 3 leaders, wake up upstairs. That's what the Department of Economics and Management. Tremor 4 leaders, fuck this man is absolutely amazing. Miss Sister, I can too. If I had a 5 o'clock morning reading in the same class with this handsome guy, I would be able to get up. Super loud 5 liters, same financial class. I regret sitting in the front row, but I didn't even see it. In other words, if you are an exchange or transfer school, no matter how enrollment is expanded in C, it is not a vegetable market. Those who can come will definitely have very good results. No matter whether the grades are awesome or not, I really want to team up with these 2 people. Damn, isn't life just for seeing beauties? At the beginning of school, everyone did not recover from the holiday, and there was nowhere to release their energy. As long as you don't learn, you can do anything. The gossip group's posts are refreshed one by one, and in the music department, the flowers and the sports department are divided into the arms of the rich second generation of the economic management department. Among the many old melons, there are 3 candid pictures. This building of praise seems to be a clear stream, born out of the sky, crazily topped, and sticking to the homepage, it continues to be read. So these 2 mysterious exchange students became famous first without knowing their names. Ruan Anan put away his cell phone after getting excited in the group chat, and Guju hung up at almost the same time. However, the 2 took the elevator to the first floor until they left the teaching building. Ruan Anan always felt that he had received a lot of inexplicable attention from all directions. Of course not only her, but also the luminous body next to her. It's not staring straight, but the kind that always feels that there is a line of sight on him, and when he looks over there, the other party will immediately turn his head. She is even more certain that those people are indeed looking at them. Fortunately, the destination was very close to the building of the Department of Economics and Management, and she took Guju to turn around 2 turns and arrived at the door of the store. She didn't even think about it. The shop was renovated into a wooden cabin, and a wooden sign read Havel Milk Tea Shop in large characters. The font should have just been brushed, still shiny, and it looks very new. Ruan Anan opened the door first and explained to Guju, "There is the place to order. I will take you to see what his house has. I like to drink pearl milk tea, but milk tea does not quench my thirst, so you'd better order fruit tea." Guju remained silent, and when she finished the introduction, she finally chose lime green. Before ordering, Ruan Anan felt Guju's footsteps. She turned her head and asked, "What's wrong? Do you want to see other things?" Guju shook his head, "I didn't bring cash, WeChat probably didn't have enough money," he said, "you lend me first, and I will pay you back later." "WeChat money is not enough." Ruan Anan reflexed, and immediately said, "That one just said a word." The brain suddenly reined in a cliff and stroked the disobedient tongue. She continued, "That one. I had to do this. Fu Bao is also fine." These 5 words were swallowed alive by her. "Any Alipay is fine too." "Alipay can't. Isn't it the same as adding him to WeChat to borrow money from WeChat?" "Almost. I almost missed it." Ruan Anan was very sighing in his heart, controlling his emotions, and his face was not obvious. After scanning the QR code and adding his WeChat, he immediately turned the red envelope of 30. When Guju paid the money, she couldn't wait to read his WeChat. The avatar is a photo, with a very white and beautiful hand on the head of an orange cat. The picture is clean and harmonious. This hand is highly recognizable, and its good looks are just what Guju is. And this cat? Ruan Anan looked from left to right, inexplicably felt that the orange cat's face was different from those on the internet. He seemed to have seen it somewhere. But before she could think of a reason, the cat owner's voice came from behind. "The milk tea is ready, where to sit?" Ruan Anan was so guilty that he locked the phone all at once. There are not many people in the milk tea shop at this point, and they are all empty. She pointed a place randomly, "That's it." The previous doubts about the cat were also gone. After the 2 were seated opposite each other, Ruan Anan poked the straws in and took a sip of milk tea contentedly. At the same time, he glanced at the huge propaganda poster by the door with the words Game Cup written on it. This poster is also very common elsewhere in the school. Ruan Anan seemed to be reminded, and then suddenly remembered to ask him about it. She said, Alice, I wanted to call him by his name, but it might be because I had said it to Zhang Yi and others too many times before, and opened my mouth to say that my was up. Gu Ju raised his eyes when he heard her voice, and his eyes were inquiring. King Jun's silhouette was illuminated by the light outside the window, making it even more eye-catching. This is different from the angle of view in class, and it is a facetofus positive beauty impact. She was so caught off guard that she paused as if she had been tapped on an acupuncture point. Fortunately, the tongue was still obedient today. Ruan Anan stopped the loss in time and changed his words, classmate Gu, cough. She pointed her finger in the direction of the poster behind him, are you here for the exchange to participate in the Game Cup? Without waiting for him to answer, Ruan Anan said on his own, I heard that there are more exchange students and transfer students this year than in previous years. This should be the reason. After all, she is one of them. Game Cup is simply a national financial investment simulation contest, jointly organized by many education group institutions led by Game Group. The competition is old and there are not many restrictions. Anyone from 18 to 26 years old can participate. However, although there is no requirement for academic qualifications, 95% of the participants in this competition are college students. In this way, there are two heavyweight college student competitions in the country. One is the computer competition that Ruan Anan participated in as a freshman, and the other is the Game Cup. The computer competition is held every 3 years and the Gaming Cup is 4 years. Each round of the competition is when the top universities in China are blushing. C University lost to F University at a slight disadvantage in the previous Game Cup, and the names of the top students in the school will be hung on the front page of the Game Cup for 4 years, until the next game champion changes hands. President Li looked at the people very kind, and the school discipline and school rules were also very humane. It is said that a large C is the most comfortable environment for students in colleges and universities. But this old man has a characteristic, especially competitive. The big champion hangs for 4 years, and President Li is worried about it for 4 years. Although he won back a city in the computer wave, in the education circle of the student circle, the Game Cup is still relatively good. Therefore, President Li has always been worried about the miss of the Game Cup and the championship. This year, he is cruel and wants to focus. Engage. Ruan Anan was in his early 20s, and it took another 3 years to get a master's degree at Harvard Business School. President Li couldn't let go of the resources that he sent to his door. So that day, when the documents for the donation were signed, Principal Li immediately raised the matter, and Ruan Anan was able to return to campus so smoothly. Gu Ju only looked back at the direction she was pointing, with no expression of surprise on his face, then turned back and asked, You want to participate? In fact, Ruan Anan participated in similar competitions in foreign countries during the years when he was studying at Harvard. At that time, he didn't aim for ranking or anything. I thought this model was quite interesting, and finally took the 10th place in the individual competition. Although she didn't know if the Game Cup could meet the expectations of Principal Li to win a championship, she should be at least better than the other students Gu Ju could find. This ranking is of little use to her, but it will have a great effect on the future employment of ordinary students. So Ruan Anan nodded, yes, do you want to join me? Team formation should be a very prudent thing for students. She was still wondering if she had to say that she was a schoolmaster, but she didn't expect that Gu Ju almost agreed without hesitation, okay. Ruan Anan was taken aback. Before he waited to say anything, he saw him lowered his head slightly, his dense eyelashes hanging down, and his fingers tapped on the phone several times. Then he raised his eyes and said, the money just now has been transferred to you. Ruan Anan didn't look at the phone, his first reaction, so fast. Isn't it no money? Even if you ask a friend to borrow it, it won't be so fast, right? However, Gu Ju suddenly laughed when she heard what she said. Looking at him, Ruan Anan stopped chewing pearls, and his heartbeat began to be uncontrollable. Guju's eyes were not pure black, they were a little brown. When he laughed like this, the pale pupils were very warm in color, and the lips after drinking seemed to be bright and attractive. Because I already have it. He put his white and beautiful fingers on the side of the cup. He looked lazy, and said with a slight drag, I just borrowed money just now, I just want to add your WeChat. Ruonanan was taken aback. Fully swallow 2 pearls. Ruonanan ordered no ordinary bubble milk tea, it was a boba milk tea whose pearls were 1 size bigger. 2 of them were swallowed. Ruonanan was choked enough, coughed twice, and took a big sip before he came back. But just because of this sentence. In the next time, her face was red all the way. When the two said goodbye, Ruonanan left much faster than when he came. She walked very simply, not knowing that Guju looked at her back with interest for a while, then turned around with her lips, and walked in the opposite direction from her. See the affiliated hospital of the main headquarters. When Guju found the ward and opened the door, there was a howl like a pig from the soundproof ward for an instant. As soon as the sick person on the bed saw him, he immediately reached out his hand to accuse him, Gu dog. Shui Zhao yelled with a loud voice, I waited for you to visit the doctor all morning. It was my broken leg, not your broken leg, and they had me jump on 1 foot to pick you up. Why are you doing this? Slow. Shui Zhao was accustomed to being careless, and Guju had known him for so many years, and he had already had antibodies. Guju brought the door to the door and watched the nurse adjust the fixed height for him. Then he walked to the hospital bed calmly and asked, Why, Miss Dad? Shui Zhao gritted his teeth, your mouth really never speaks human words, you will bark. Guju raised his eyebrows. In fact, he doesn't care much about his nicknames, but it's really fun to watch the barrels collapsed. The reason for Tong Shui Zhao's broken leg this time can be summarized in 3 words: broken relationship, drunk driving, car accident. When Guju walked back to the bed and was about to say something, Yu Guang swept a few crooked lines on his plaster. It was full of words like dogs a get well soon, there is no fragrant grass anywhere in the world, one is better than one, and so on. At first glance, it was written by the group of people when they came to visit. It's relevant to the topic, and it's also very warning. Shui Zhao knew the direction of his gaze, and quickly said, What are you doing? Gu Go, what are you going to do? I'll tell you. No. No, if Guju didn't hear it, he smiled and picked up the marker next to him, and also wrote and painted on his plaster legs, they have written all the principles, and I will encourage you. Shui Zhao scolded and craned his neck to look. Guju wrote 4 very eye-catching characters. Son, come on. Shui Zhao blushed with anger. Gu Go, you're fucking. After Guju finished writing, he took pictures with his mobile phone on the plaster legs, which are all inspirational quotes. Shui Zhao scolded even more fiercely. This curse continued for 5 minutes, until Shui Zhao's lung capacity was not enough, and finally gasped and asked about him, so what do you mean by coming back this time? Have fun? Or are you ready to take over the domestic family business? Both. Guju sat on the sofa next to him, bending his long legs. After reading for so many years, it is considered liberated. No, you read it all over. Shui Zhao, who was still struggling as a graduate student, rolled his eyes. Then you have always had a senior position at the Gu family overseas headquarters, are you willing? You've really been in China from now on. The probability is. He nodded and said, there is nothing to be reluctant to bear. It's the same everywhere. Sooner or later. This bragging, Shui Zhao originally wanted to task him, but when he thought that Guju was telling the truth, it was not a bragging, and he shut up himself. After a few seconds, Guju suddenly added, oh, suddenly remembering, it's not actually liberating. Shui Zhao was confused. Guju, I just forgot to tell you that I am now a major financial exchange student. Xue Zhao. Xue Zhao couldn't believe it. What the did you say? What are you exchanging? He was so excited that he almost kicked people with a broken leg. You took all the Stanford PhDs. Gu Go, are you sick? Gu Ju just smiled without talking. Xue Zhao boldly guessed again, don't be stunned by studying the magic, you want to read the PhD of C major together? After reading C major, read F major, and finally come to a Ph.D. Grand Slam. What the is the brain to come up with a doctoral Grand Slam? Gu Ju sneered, am I a fool? Xue Zhao's eyes widened and asked, you are not a fool, so what are you doing? Gu Ju didn't answer immediately, instead he smiled suddenly. He was sitting on the sofa with his legs straight and a relaxed posture. This laugh was particularly criminal. Gu Ju's good looks have been recognized since he was a child, but Xue Zhao looked at him with a smile and didn't know why. He suddenly thought of idioms centered on the word spring, such as the full of spring in the garden. Gu Ju's speech was slow, probably for. He stopped here again. When the two of them were silent, the ward was extremely quiet. Xue Zhao was stunned by his appetite. After waiting for a few more seconds, Gu Ju smiled even more. It can probably be described as Chun Man in the world. Then, he said in an unusually gentle tone, in order to chase a little girl. After saying goodbye to Gu Ju at the milk tea shop, he went to the main hospital of the school to continue to visit the patient friend, while Ruan Anan walked on the campus avenue, tapping the keyboard frantically with his fingers. Ruan Anan and Ruan, he says. He is actually rich. He borrowed my money. Just for it. Plus. Micro. Letter. After typing these words, Ruananan frantically expressed love in the group of stinky sisters and swiped the screen. He didn't slow down until he almost walked to the school gate. When Gu Ju borrowed money before, Ruananan was simply thinking about it with joy. Fortunately, he didn't say anything quickly, otherwise he didn't know what way he had to add to WeChat next time. But she never expected. Gu Ju was deliberate. The cautious thoughts of the hidden jabs are naturally different from the straightforward words, and Ruananan's mood suddenly changed 180 degrees. Forget it deliberately, and even spread it out so plainly to her. The front foot looked indifferently to borrow money, and the back foot recruited the motive of borrowing money by himself. Don't even bother to lie. So honest. Make her blushing. Ruananan is not a blushing person. Zhang Yi and Yin Yuan once questioned whether he was a monk, otherwise he would be so calm about everything. At that time, facing the sultry words of Gu Dashui, coupled with his appearance on her G-point, his face was so hot that it was about to explode, and it is still warm and not completely cooled. The lethality of the is too great. Ruan Anan went home and took a shower. After going crazy with the two, he remembered one more thing. Ruananan and Ruan, Zhang Yi doesn't eat ginger, Yin Yuan has no marriage. Ruan Anan smiled and typed, Zhang Yi doesn't eat ginger? Hurt, what nonsense, Ruan, your new Huanming surname is Chiao. Ruanan took a sigh of relief. Yin Yuan has no marriage, puff ha 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 ha, yeah, the man who makes Ruan crazy last name Chiao, first name but applaud Ruananan. After talking about the mask brother, the smelly sister core suddenly began to cherish the memories of high school at night. In the end, all three of them were very energetic. Ruan Anan wanted to chat with Gu Ju and was afraid of disturbing his sleep. He tossed about for a long time before going to bed before dawn. The end result was that he was dying sleepy the next morning. Life is precious, love is higher. If it is for love, you must get up early. Ruananan first played Because of Love on a loop for himself, coupled with the constant recollection of the face of her buttock and her slender waist and hips. Only then did she get up with perseverance. Then, in order to cover the dark circles, she put on a light makeup while supporting her eyelids. The moment I sat in the classroom, I felt that I was moved by China. Ruonanan was so excited last night. She has never been in love, nor has she ever been unrequited love, except that she had a little bit of symptom when she was young, but it has long been extinguished. Sometimes I watch the kind of video that yells how sweet the love of these CPS is. No matter how much I watch, she feels nothing. Now I finally understand. When Guju asked WeChat frankly, she realized this unspeakable sweetness. Self-doubt is also natural, but the brain will filter out those careful thoughts, and all the nonsense in the mind will point to a conclusion. I want to tell the world yes, that's it. The handsome guy I was in love with, now seems to me up. When she was sitting in her seat full of thoughts, there was a slight noise in the seat next to her. Ruonanan turned his head suddenly. Unexpectedly, it happened to meet Guju's sight. His skin is white, and the faint cyan under his eyes is especially obvious, and the whole person seems to be a little lazy and tired. The eyes are slightly narrowed and appear longer and narrower, and a small strand of hair on the side is curled up and curved, which looks very soft. Looking directly at each other, Guju suddenly raised the corners of his lips, and the whole outline seemed to be vivid, morning. Ruonanan Wen's heartbeat suddenly increased all morning. After he said this word, Ruonanan smelled a very refreshing mint smell. She blinked and smiled, morning. Although Gu Dashui was cool and rebellious for forcing him to bring nothing to class, Ruonanan really couldn't do it empty-handed. She still brought the same 2 books and pens as yesterday, and prepared to put them on the table. When she took the pen out, she put the pen that was borrowed yesterday and played a lesson in front of Guju. Guju paused, then her ears were a little numb with a chuckle, and she said thank you again. Ruonanan felt that although her dark circles were covered, it was probably difficult to cover her sleepiness. Before she waited to say a few words to Guju, he raised his eyebrows and asked, "Are you very sleepy today?" Ruonanan nodded, "Yet. Isn't it all because of you, the grinning little fairy? You wait." One hand of Guju has habitually picked up a pen to perform acrobatics, and the other hand reaches into his pocket. Ruonanan didn't pay attention to what he was doing, and after a second she came back to her senses, with his spread hands in front of her. With slender fingers and white texture lines on the palms, there is a blue packaged candy lying quietly. And being held by this hand makes even ordinary sugar look extraordinarily delicate. Guju pushed his hand forward again, with a smile in his voice, "Remuneration, borrowed." As soon as he talked, the mint smell on his body became stronger, and it also had the sweet smell of sugar, which was particularly good. The case is solved. It must smell so good because I just ate this candy. Thank you. Ruonanan pretended to calmly take it. As I opened it, I couldn't help thinking, this is the candy from Guju. They are about to eat the same money soon, and they are about to breathe the fragrance of mint together. Ruonanan eats less sugar and has less mint flavor. The first 10 seconds after this candy was eaten in the mouth was really refreshing, but when I got used to the refreshing taste later, I should be sleepy or sleepy. The phone shook several times, and Ruonanan touched it to unlock it. Generally, such high-frequency vibrations were caused by the stinky sister army. The teacher hasn't come yet, Ruonanan hasn't had the energy of staying up late last night. Ruonanan was so sleepy and stared, holding his chin with one hand and tilting his head. He didn't bother to pick up the phone with the other hand, so he reached out and ordered it. The female voice that came out was not too loud or too small, with bright smiles and teasing. It was just enough for the two of them to hear. "Baby, have you seen your hips? Is it still that? Her head is empty." I didn't have time to do any reaction, and then I opened my eyes wide and heard the next one automatically broadcast, "Tisk, I heard that thee is amazing, you will be lucky in the future." Lying, trough. Ruonanan almost held his breath for an instant. And keenly aware of it, Ben Chiao was turning his pen, and stopped. The number of people in the classroom gradually increased. Because of the exchange of hot posts, many people looked at the two seats at the back door as soon as they entered the door. In the photos on the forum that day, the two extremely beautiful two seemed to be talking and laughing, but now they seem to be stuck in a certain stagnant situation. Ruan Ainan's mind is full of Zhang Yi's sentence, "The buttocks are amazing. Where is it great? When are you great?" Everyone is an adult, and they all understand. Ruan Ainan even felt that the surrounding air was too embarrassing to circulate. To say that she has any desperate desire to realize now, it must be to meet Doraemon and borrow a time-lapse machine, and it is enough not to go back too much for a minute. Although Alice is a very special and representative nickname in her heart, after all, when she first met Guju, she didn't see his face, but the buttocks that left a deep impression on her. She liked this very much. The title is also very cute. But, how can this nickname be heard by the Lord? After Zhang Yi's two voices were broadcast, there were no new messages below, and the phone naturally quieted down. Ruan Ainan finished howling in his heart, closed his eyes abruptly, and slightly adjusted his mentality. Then she didn't go to Guju either, instead she sat up slowly with the slightly slanted posture just now. Ruan Ainan rubbed his eyes with one hand, yawned extremely realistically, and frowned as he looked at the screen of the phone. What is this person saying? Well, I don't know how to speak in a group at who knows she's here? Who to talk to? The voice was confused, as if it were serious complaints. After all, the voice that Zhang Yi sent just now is called baby instead of Ruan. As long as it is a voice message in a group chat, who knows who the baby is called? And from this perspective, Guju shouldn't see that there are only 3 people in this group. Everything is just right, and I'm still innocent and perfect after putting myself away. Ruan Ainan is very satisfied with his acting skills. She moved her fingers slightly, and naturally cut out the group chat interface. Instead she wanted to find a new topic immediately to make Guju forget about the buttocks. But he didn't expect that as soon as he turned his head, he met Guju's eyes staring at her. Unlike the look of tiredness when he was just seated, his eyes were particularly clear at this time. If you observe carefully, you can see a slight smile on the lips. Ruan Ainan couldn't understand his emotions, with his candy in his mouth, so bitterly he stared at him for a few seconds. Ho Guju suddenly spoke, and echoed with a smile, "Yes, who knows?" Ordinarily, if the acting is successful, it should be a sigh of relief. But for a moment, Ruan Ainan suddenly felt that this person seemed to understand everything. For more than 10 seconds, he was just watching her self-direction and performance, and she watched it with gusto. But it was only a moment. After the episode passed, the awkward atmosphere disappeared, and then she and Guju resumed their normal tone and conversation as they did yesterday. Ruan Ainan had 2 classes today. The second period did not go with Guju. It was the elective course that she was interested in. "Today, I am going to have lunch at my grandpa's house, and the time is just right after class." Ruan Ainan answered the phone, walked a distance to the south after leaving the school gate, and saw the Bentley Mustang, who was very familiar with the license plate at the corner of the corner. When the car stopped, someone got out of the car and opened the door for her. Ruan Ainan smiled and greeted the driver, "Hello Uncle Wang, please come and pick me up." Uncle Wang happily said that it's not hard, wait until she gets in the car and sit back in the driving seat. Half an hour later, the car arrived at Lin's villa. The Lin family villa is located in a relatively quiet area near the center of Qingcheng. The old man Lin and his beloved wife are both old. Living here will not be inconvenient to travel, and it also blocks most of the hustle and bustle of the city. Ruan Ainan got out of the car, and the servants who greeted her along the way. She walked in the door familiarly, and at a glance, she saw an old man sitting on the sofa in the living room, with grey hair but vigorous, wearing a pair of reading glasses in her hand. Holding a book, sitting in an unusually upright posture. "Grandpa!" Ruan Ainan called him quizzically as he changed his shoes. Ignore. Grandpa, I'm back. Still ignored. Oh, the old man has a hard heart today. Ruonanan suffocated a smile, trot to him quickly, and took his arm. Oh, why are you angry again, Grandpa? You still have the face to ask me. Lin Songbei threw the book on the coffee table and stared at the little girl next to him. You girl. You don't know if you come back if I don't ask you to come back. Ruonanan had just returned to China, followed by a birthday party for the sisters. He also attended 2 days of class, and he did not contact his grandfather anymore. She was wrong, so she squeezed her shoulders and beat her back with the smiling face, which made the old man calm down. After chatting for a while, Ruonanan was a little strange. Where is Grandma? Are you going out or sleeping? Lin Songbei's expression became darker for a moment, and he said hard, I'm going to dance. Then he began to meditate again. Her few friends just don't have a good heart. They danced and danced all day long when they were old. It's... Ruonanan rolled his eyes silently. No wonder I was so angry when I came here. This is putting your wife's anger on me. At lunch, Ruonanan talked about the Prosperous Forest project documents that he signed to C, and he was a little dissatisfied. Grandpa, I took an elective course at C University, which is related to VR. I like this major and I like it very much. This project? You said that if I had learned computer, wouldn't it be usable? I shouldn't let me study finance. Ruonanan went to Harvard to study because Lin Songbei suddenly called her to the study and talked with her for a whole afternoon, and persuaded her to transfer to the United States to study finance and management, so as to take over the company in the future. Ruonanan was less than 20 years old at that time, and naturally wanted to pursue her dream of hackers more. At first she didn't agree with her, but until Lin Songbei showed her her case, she was dumbfounded. In fact, they were all old problems, but she never knew it, and some of the disease names looked terribly long. Coupled with the fact that the old man was very full of drama back then, he used a tone that was simply an explanation of the funeral. Ruonanan was almost scared to cry by him, thinking that his grandfather was only a few years away, and he began to prepare to transfer abroad without saying a word. In the second year after going abroad, it was Grandma's drunkenness who told her the truth. Anan, you are willing to change your major, don't mention how happy your grandpa is. Grandma said, but this stinky old man was really good at acting back then. Hey, I am ashamed for him. Lin Songbei widened his eyes when he heard the words, what do you study computers for? I let you manage the company, not scientific research. After speaking, he reacted, you wait for a while. The old man paused, you just said you are going to class? Are you okay to go to C University for what class? Ruonanan couldn't hide it for 2 days or half a year, so he immediately explained the cause and effect, but didn't mention anything about the ass. Lin Songbei looked a little better. Well, it's good for you to participate in this. It can add a lot of light to the first few resumes. After a while, he asked again, the Ruan family will look for you in the past few days when you return to China. Are you there yet? Ruonan took a sigh of relief. I found it, she said, her tone faded a little, how can I not find it? Call me 800 times a day. I was blacked out yesterday. Speaking of this, if the grandmother was there, she would probably persuade her to release the person from the blacklist. But when Grandma was not there, the old man immediately patted the table, it's good to black out. It's time to black out him. I'm used to stinky things. What does Lin Songbei's granddaughter like to do? How old is he? Ruonanan twitched the corners of his lips. Grandpa, don't be so excited, the rice is spewing out. This unpleasant topic was quickly left behind by the two. After eating, Ruonanan drank the tea made by the nanny, and heard Lin Songbei sigh with emotion, I didn't expect you to graduate so long in advance. The Lin family has a big business and complicated side branches. It is unrealistic to change the blood suddenly. Lin Songbei has started to implement it since he found Ruonanan. He planned well. His granddaughter returned with a master's degree in 5 or 6 years, and he has already cleared the way for her. In the past 3 years in foreign countries, Ruonanan has not even returned to China during the summer vacation except for the New Year. So 3 years later, dumbfounded, replaced by the old man. Ruonanan came back early and there was a gap period, otherwise, where would I have time to go to school? She smiled, I graduated early with my ability, do you have any comments? Lin Songbei frowned again, still dissatisfied, you girl is also really, if you told me that you graduated early, where can I let you go back to China? Can you continue to study for a doctorate? So I didn't say it wisely. The old man sighed, Ruonanan was holding a teacup and cheating. I didn't listen to the old man's words, and I was happy for several years. The beautiful man is at hand, happiness is in front of you. The official opening of the Gaming Cup is near the midterm exams of general universities. The Department of Economics and Management offers a Gaming Cup training course every 4 years. It is counted as a professional course. Students from the Department of Economics and Management must choose, and students from other departments can listen. Ruonanan first took this class in the morning 2 days later. She hadn't been to the classroom this time before, and she searched for the classroom for half an hour. When she arrived, she was stopped at the door again. Classmates. Hello, she is a girl with a fat baby on her cheeks. She is very cute and her voice is clear and crisp. Introduce yourself first. My name is Chu Yan, from the first class of China World Trade Center. Ruonanan liked the girl's face and smiled, hello. Excuse me, are you an exchange student? Ruonanan was taken aback, I am, but how do you know? I guessed it on the forum. She laughed happily and spoke quickly, that's right, I want to ask your classmates if you have a Game Cup group? If not, can you join me? Chu Yan pointed her finger at a place 1 meter away from them. There were 2 boys standing side by side, those 2 are the other 2 team members, and the 3 of us are all pretty good at studying. Classmates, would you like to think about it? Ruonanan was a little surprised, she stopped herself and said that it turned out to be the purpose. The Game Cup group stage is indeed a unit of 5 people. Ruonanan has a good first impression of this girl, and it feels comfortable to talk straight to the subject. In fact, it doesn't matter who she is in a group with as long as Guju is in the group. Can. Ruonanan thought for a while, but I said I'm going to be with another boy, I have no problem, and I have to ask him. Chu Yan actually saw these 2 beauties from the forum. Of course, she knew who the other guy was, and her eyes brightened, it's okay, it's okay. It doesn't matter who the 2 boys are in the same group, mainly because I think. Team with you. But you don't know me either, Ruonanan blinked, why do you want to be with me? Ruonanan's blinking of an eye seemed to slow down automatically in Chu Yan's eyes. She obviously didn't wear makeup, but her skin was very delicate. When she was surprised, her eyes widened slightly and she didn't apply any cosmetics on her face. She looked pretty. Kai Huyan's eyes are about to light up, because Miss Sister, you look so good. This half of the semester is dominated by competitions. A group of people will see you when you look up and lower your head. Think about it, you can see such a beautiful little girl every day. How happy Sister is. Ruonanan chuckled. Unexpectedly, this is also a face dog. He should be in the classroom. I will ask and give you an answer after class. Chu Yan made an okay gesture very happily, and ran to the 2 boys. Ruonanan still heard her cry, ah, 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 she didn't reject me, ah 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 ah. The 2 were standing at the back door of the classroom just now. Ruonanan found that Guju was still sitting in the last row as soon as he entered, and there was still an empty seat beside him. This is the first time she has arrived later than Guju. Ruonanan was about to walk over, and his eyes flickered, but he saw a girl standing beside Guju. The female's growth hair covered her face, and she lowered her head and said something to him. I guess it was asking if there was anyone next to her. Guju nodded. The girl didn't leave, and said another word. Ruan Anan noticed that Guju had said something to reply to her this time. It was still a long time ago. The girl just left. Ruan Anan stepped forward immediately. Before she could speak, Guju sitting in the seat raised his head and said, I'm sorry, there is. Then he stopped for a moment when he met her. It's finally here. He got up and gave up his seat with a smile. I have reserved a seat for you many times today. Ruan Anan said, I just saw it. Does that girl have anything else looking for you? As soon as she sat down, she asked, I look at her. No, this seat is for 3 people. She asked how many friends I have if I can join us. Want to have a threesome? Ruan Anan was taken aback. Then what? I said, can I trouble you to find another vacancy? Guju stared at her, as if deliberately slowing down. I prefer to sit alone with her. Who this she is self-evident. The classroom is huge, and seats in a row of 3 people are indeed available everywhere. As the she in Gujwakao, Ruan Anan was calm on her face, and she was so happy that she was going to heaven in her heart. She set up a brand new book that she hadn't written in a pen that she hadn't written once, while calming her heartbeat. As usual, he handed the pen to Guju, and then mentioned the matter. You know that the game cup is a group of 5? Someone in the corridor just asked me if I want to be a group with us. Ruan Anan found 3 people in the classroom and pointed to him. It's those 3. She said that she wanted to say that if Guju knew someone else who wanted to group, then follow his. But he didn't expect that Guju just glanced lightly, and then nodded, it's okay, I don't care. Kai Huyen and the others may not care about the final result. Those 2 people have a good relationship with her, so let her come and find someone else. But why is Guju such a Buddha? Ruan Anan wanted to say something and looked at him for a few more times. Guju soon found out that he also reached out and touched his face. Is there something on my face? The skin on his fingers and cheeks is very white, and he has made such a casual movement of touching his face very beautifully. Ruan Anan shook her head and asked her doubts tactfully, I thought you had to think about it, why did you agree to the team request so easily? Guju was taken aback. He began to recall the expression on Ruan Anan's face when he asked him just now, whether there was any hidden cautious thinking that he didn't understand. Do you want me to refuse? Hey! Ruan Anan was taken aback for a moment, and immediately said, no, I just think. Because I heard from my friend that in this game, everyone was busy looking for Swiba to hug thighs or something. But it was the second time I met with you. I asked you to agree. She paused. It was just now. Promise is too simple. Ruan Anan never thought about relying on teammates from beginning to end, so it didn't matter. She felt that if she couldn't win the championship, she would be inferior to her skills, but what is the reason for Guju? Guju didn't expect to be asked this question. Ruan Anan invited him to be a teammate at the milk tea shop. At that time, she might not have noticed her expression. She tilted her head slightly, her big eyes were bright, and she looked like the King of Glory will take you on this bronze. It's divided. Although I don't know where she is straightforward and cute, and inexplicably happy. Guju spoke again with a clear smile, because you look very confident, why don't I agree? Ruan Anan raised his hand uncomfortably and smoothed his hair. In fact, it doesn't depend on her being confident. After all, she took 10th in the PWM competition abroad, which is similar to the Game Cup. Moreover, there are only 2 Chinese students in the top 10 in the singles, one is the first and the other is her. People can't be blindly humble. Thinking of this, Ruan Anan suddenly felt that he should give Guju some confidence. You are right, I am quite confident, she said, I can barely take you to fly. As soon as the voice fell, Guju, who was sitting next to her, suddenly smiled. The corners of her eyes were crooked, like she was telling a funny joke. Ruonanan can't remember how many times he laughed in total. Guju liked to laugh, but most of the time it was that kind of faint and soft smile. And this time seems to be different from other times. The corners of his mouth are cocked, a little bit bad for no apparent reason, like a dangling boy. Ruonanan was startled by his smile, and a little bit ashamed. Is this unbelief or look down on her? She really looks so ignorant. Just when Ruonanan didn't know what to say, the next second, this person suddenly received a big smile, and nodded sternly, well, you take it. Guju looked at her seriously, his eyes slightly bent, and the pale pupils were gentle and beautiful. In the next second, he suddenly leaned close to her ear, not too close to make people offensive, it was a very standard posture for whispering. Ruonanan was instantly enveloped by the sweet mint scent. He lowered his clear voice slightly, and said every word, I'm lying down. Guju controlled the distance very well, so that it didn't make people want to avoid it, but it was close enough. When he speaks normally, his voice is charming enough, not to mention deliberately lowering his voice. To be honest, Ruonanan was in a trance when he heard it, and he couldn't realize what his words corresponded to. Until she reviewed the conversation between the two in her brain. I can barely take you to fly. Well, then you take it. I'm lying down. Fuck. This. And also. 2. Commit. Regulation. Up. Right. Guju stepped back a little, and returned to the same table distance as her, watching the girl's reaction with interest. At this moment, Ruonanan's left ear seemed to be electrified, and the faint numbness began to spread. A rush of heat that came from nowhere quickly began to rise from the base of the ear, until it covered the entire auricle, and even the cheeks followed. Guju just watched the girl's original snow-white ears dyed little by little and became pink, but her posture at this moment was extremely rigid, as if someone had been tapping an acupuncture point. Guju couldn't hold back, leaning on his seat and smiled. Ruonanan heard this light smile, as if he was activated by the switch, and the first thing he did after reacting was to raise his hand to pull out the long hair that he tucked behind his ears, and pull out his hot ears and profile face. It is tightly covered. Ruonanan Yugwang swept to Guju and clicked on the table with a pen. What's the matter? Uncomfortable. What's wrong? What's wrong with me, don't you count? Ruonanan pretended to be calm and replied, I didn't feel uncomfortable. It's fine if you don't have it, Guju explained slowly, I think your face is a little red. Ruonanan gritted his teeth, you may not have known me for a while, and I often blush. She was just a stiff mouth, but was anxious in her heart. She couldn't hold back her head and looked at him, and emphasized, absolutely not. Because you just talked to me so you are shy. Seeing Guju's somewhat dazed expression, Ruonanan was lost for a while. Are you stupid? Did someone ask you? Has anyone mentioned the word shy even once? The words came out of the mouth, only to realize what shocking nonsense he said. And Guju could hardly hold back any more. After the girl had finished speaking, she looked unlovable, and she seemed to be able to imagine how wonderful her inner drama was at this moment. It is estimated that she spit on herself while complaining about him as the culprit. Guju has always controlled a certain degree. He felt that making a little bigger one would frighten the little girl when he came up, so he had to make progress gradually. I saw her blushing just now, but I just planned to finish it. But, this reaction is too cute. Guju sat up slightly and said oh, then nodded, his smile and voice were very meaningful, it turns out to be shy. Congratulations to player Ruonanan for gaining red-faced special effects again. After the class, there is a roll call. Because of the exchange of students, Ruonanan and Guju were named next to each other. Long after they were named, there were still people who kept looking back. Ruonanan has indeed received a lot of these kinds of eyes these days. At first, she thought it was a famous person and everyone habitually looked at it. Later, she found that only when she and Guju had this pattern, she nodded everyone's heads. As stable as the foundation of the building, it doesn't move. But she was puzzled in her heart and passed. There was a 5-minute break in the middle of the big class. Ruan Anan happened to meet Chu Yan coming out of the front door when she went to the toilet. Before she could speak, Chu Yan ran over excitedly, "Miss, are you grouped?" Ruan Anan gave her a positive answer, and then they happened to go to the toilet together. Chu Yan said triumphantly while washing her hands, "Hurt, fortunately, I asked you soon before I started. This is the first time I have been so close to a forum celebrity in my life and stayed in a group. I think I can graduate. Okay?" Ruan Anan wiped his hands and asked, "What forum did you talk about?" "Oh, sorry, I forgot that you weren't a big C before, so I don't know." Chu Yan said, "It's our school's campus forum, gossip entertainment group, everyone is fine every day to post. I remember that the first school started God, you are going to debut in C position." Ruan Anan. "What's the point?" Seeing her look dumbfounded, Chu Yan added her WeChat on the way back to the classroom, and immediately sent a link. Although Ruan Anan has never been in the C forum before, other forums also have accounts and are quite familiar with a series of operations. When I returned to my seat and read the news from Chu Yan, I was shocked by the title first. Theme number report. Those two beautiful exchange students in Class 1 of Finance definitely have one leg. Shampoo without me standing upside down. Number Ruan Anan. The exquisite exchange student is okay. Ruan Anan was stunned by the term, and looked up at one of the beautiful exchange students beside him. The 5-minute break passed quickly, and the teacher started to babble on it again. Gu Juizheng turned his pen absently, his eyes looked forward but he looked like you just listen to it and count me lose. She couldn't help but smile, retracted her gaze and clicked into the link, wanting to see how the Onelegged method was used. 1 liter, the conclusion of the title is the result of my little sister's blood and tears. She has agreed to it. Then I won't put the high-rise posts with pictures on exchange students a few days ago. Judging from the frequency of their appearance on the homepage in the past 2 days, I believe everyone has not forgotten this is the case. When Sister A and I first arrived in class this morning, I looked back and the handsome guy sat in the last row by himself, no one beside him. She was so handsome, she couldn't do it after looking at it twice. How could I persuade me not to move, and I wanted to sit next to someone like I was insane. The result? Of course it failed. People said to help friends occupy a seat. Because it is a row of 3 people, said she asked afterwards, how many people are her friends, and can we sit with him and his friends? Then Dashuegu forced a reply, 1. Then he said, but can I trouble you to find another vacant seat? I prefer to sit alone with her. I prefer to sit alone with her. Sit alone. She was. Later, when the class was about to start, we looked back and found that the friend that the handsome man forced was indeed the super beautiful young lady. Coincidentally, when we watched these 2 people were very close, the handsome man forced a smile and whispered in her ear, the posture was very intimate. I don't know what I said, the young lady's face turned red all of a sudden. I'm sweet, how about you? 2 liters. I am too sweet. Let me speculate that the 2 exquisite exchange students have not confirmed their relationship yet. Otherwise, the handsome guy would just talk about their girlfriends? Then I seem to have a foreboding what my life will be like in the next few months. Students of Finance Class 1. Please work hard like today's host. 3 liters, it's really sweet. It means that I have seen the picture building and imagined that face smiling and whispering in my ear, ah, I'm dead. 4 liters, dead +1. Oh, that face is awesome QWQ 5 liters, however, the host, your sister, is also very relieved ha 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 ha. 25 liters, I have a feeling of CP. According to the upstairs, if the 2 are not together, am I going to witness the love of a pair of gods? 26L. Damn it! I have been in school for 2 years, and my eldest sisters share with me the fairy love of their school couple every day. I forward that post to me every time she eats sugar. That's it. She also mocked our school for not having such a couple. I am not convinced. You now finally has it. I will forward it. After reading all the buildings, I felt a little weird at first. It turns out that from the perspective of others, she and Guju, are they like this? After waiting for a while, Ruonanan was almost enthusiastic after reading it. She climbed up and looked at the main building several times as if reading comprehension. For some reason, she felt extremely excited and satisfied in her heart. At the end, Ruonanan quickly went out to register for a forum account, and came back to find the post. Try to type a few words blankly. 37 liters, well, I also think there must be a leg. As soon as she said this, before she felt ashamed, one of the protagonist's voice suddenly came to her ears with a deliberately soft voice. What are you looking at? Guju's half-breathing voice was a bit off guard, but to be honest, it was not scary, it was just too sultry, and she almost couldn't hold her phone securely. Ruonanan immediately locked the screen to prevent him from seeing what he was typing, and replied with the same small voice, nothing, it's a funny post sent to me by a friend. Fearing that Guju would let her forward it to him, Ruonanan immediately provoked another topic, what are you going to do after class? Guju's phone just shook, looking at the location above it a little headache. It's been a while since he returned to China. Today is the first time he has been with that group of people. It is estimated that it will be all night. After thinking for a while, he said, I took a part-time job as a tutor, and I am going to leave school. Wow, you still work as a tutor? Ruonanan had forgotten the embarrassment before the first class, and because of this, his affection for Guju soared. How about you? Guju asked. Ruonanan thought for a long time, but couldn't say that he wanted to party with the little sister in the bar. She blinked, I'm going to study in the library. After class, the two said goodbye at the entrance of the teaching building. Ruonanan first went around to buy a cup of coconut milk, and then went to the second gate of Si Daedong. This is remote, and there is no subway or bus station for students to take. A bright red open-top Lamborghini Aventador parked there is particularly conspicuous. Ruonanan walked over while drinking coconut juice and opened the car door. As soon as he sat down, he heard Yan Yuan tisk. Ruonanan used how simple and easy to wear when he was in school, and today he just covered his dress with a sweater. Yan Yuan, who was obviously dressed up, looked at her up and down, this won't work, baby, good looking is good looking, dress a bit too plain. Yan Yuan started the car, I'll take you to my store to change clothes. The other side. Guju left the teaching building and walked through the long avenue on the campus. When he reached the affiliated hospital, he took the elevator to the underground. He found a black Bugatti in the parking lot. He was about to start a fire, and his mobile phone suddenly kept shaking in his pocket. The surroundings were extremely quiet, and the voice on the other end of the phone came out without hindrance, where is Master Gu? San Kuei is the waiting for you, Shui Zhao is all here, so crippled, why don't you come here? 10 minutes. Guju smiled and said unhurriedly, tell them, be prepared to lose money to me later. Then he cut off the curse, hung up the phone, and stepped on it. Accelerator. In the opposite direction, the two sports cars went away. The industries under Yan Yuan's family are mostly related to shopping, and several large shopping malls in the urban area are basically hers. Ruonanan was not only pulled to change into a small skirt with a particularly visible figure, but also put on makeup by Yan Yuan. Ruonanan's looks belonged to the kind of face that looked so pure at first glance. In general, innocent beauties are relatively dull, but when Ruonanan doesn't speak, she looks pure in temperament, but her facial features are also very beautiful, and she is even more shocking when she laughs. How else can you have the title of lawn harvester? Is it silly to be the grass? Yen Yuan was holding her head, and she was very satisfied when she looked left and right. Isn't it? Ruan Anan looked at himself in the mirror, somewhat helpless. Yin Daxia's craftsmanship has become more and more exquisite, and his concubines are now so beautiful that they can go to face saints. Yen Yuan smiled and accepted the tools. Well, let's go. So the two got into the car again and went straight to the destination. Unlike last time, the place chosen this time is VAT, a famous entertainment bar in Qingcheng. VAT has several floors up and down. You can choose the VIP boxes for drinking, singing, and playing cards at will. There are even several floors of guest rooms upstairs. Zhang Yi arrived earlier than them, and she was chatting with the store manager when the two came in. Zhang Yi is also awesome, Yen Yuan laughed all of a sudden. Who would have thought that Miss Zhang family, a standard good girl, holds the lifelong black cards of all the bars in Qingcheng. Ruananan also yelled at him, Tisk tusk, it's amazing. Several people talked and laughed and were taken upstairs to the private box by the bar manager. Today's meeting is not really meaningful, it's just that if everyone is fine, make an appointment to have fun. In addition, Ruananan also held back for several days and didn't update them on their own and Guju's dynamics, and the desire to talk was overwhelming. In the first half of the night, the three had a meal prepared by a specially appointed French chef in the box. The wine didn't drink much, it was left for the second half. After eating, he moved to the bar on the second floor of the bar, where he dedicated himself to drinking. As the closest person to leaving a single, Ruananan lived up to the expectations and started talking about what happened these days from sitting down. Ruananan finished the first glass of wine one sip after another. On the first day, didn't I tell you about WeChat? Well, although we didn't chat much after adding WeChat. But I thought about it later. No matter how you look back, I feel that what he said on his face at the time was suggesting me. Yen Yuan waved her hand, did this wave pass? Such an obvious hint is obviously interesting to you. Ruananan took the second glass of wine, then I added WeChat. The next day, I was too excited at that time. I didn't sleep well in the middle of the night. After arriving in the classroom, he asked me if I was sleepy, and I confessed. Oh, and I didn't expect it. He actually gave me a mint. Wait, Yen Yuan interrupted, there are so many people in your classroom, why does he ask you whether you are sleepy or not to worry about others? Oh, when you are sleepy, you are sleepy. If you two are ordinary classmates, they will be the why give you candy. Ruananan was shocked. Yen Yuan, if he doesn't mean that to you, and others are still sleepy, why doesn't he give others mints? He sells candies. Ruananan, damn you are right. Do it. Zhang Yi. The two began to drink the third cup. Let me tell you. Ruananan suddenly thought of this morning, and was so excited, I used to make a member of my game cup. At that time, when I asked him, he agreed, and I felt it's strange, he's not afraid that I'm a scumbag. Ruananan continued, today we talked about this I think, I'm from Harvard anyway, I can't persuade me. I just tell him, don't worry, I can still fly you. Then he said. Ruananan blushed, he's lying down. After a pause, he added, I still deliberately came to my ear to say it. Puff. Zhang Yi really almost squirted out. She coughed twice and was a little surprised, no, this man has a good meeting. Otherwise. Yen Yuan raised her chin, can you fascinate people who have been pure-hearted for more than 20 years? Ruananan took advantage of the two of them to ridicule, and when they were playing on their mobile phones, he suddenly sent a circle of friends, and smiled and set it to be visible to only one person. Next, Zhang Yi began to watch the show. By the fourth cup Ruananan, chi chi chi. Cha cha. Yen Yuan, gu gu gu. So well. He must be interesting to you. Zhang Yi tried to stop. No, why are you suddenly so excited? Both of you don't drink well. This cocktail is not low, so don't. However, it didn't make any difference. In the fifth cup, Ruan Anan went straight up. Alice definitely likes me. Yin Yuan is also very stubborn, he doesn't like your wife who has no for a lifetime. Zhang Yi, who was halfway through the second glass of wine, was in attendance. It was past 9 o'clock by now, and Zhang Yi didn't count these two goods falling so early. Tota Yon of the three people must be sober, fortunately she didn't drink much today. Yin Yuan is a bit stronger than Ruananan, and it's okay to walk independently, but she's a little bit excited. I went to the toilet just now and after coming back, I kept whispering, I'm just looking dazzling. I went to the wrong toilet. What's the matter? Shui Zhao is such a man, so he just opened his mouth and opened his mouth. Forced. Zhang Yi was a little surprised, Shui Zhao is there. Well, Yin Yuan said, with the crutches, he's still lame. Ha 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 ha. Zhang Yi didn't laugh with her, her head was too big, she pointed in a direction, baby, you can go by yourself, get off the elevator from there and go to the parking lot first. I called my driver to pick him up, she pointed to the side. Ruananan on one side, I have to fight this wine barrel down. Yin Yuan waved her hand and moved slowly towards the VIP elevator, while Zhang Yi also put Ruananan's arm on her body. When she was playing with Ruananan's posture, she found that a slender figure stood a few meters away from the two of them, very tall, good in figure, and the one who couldn't fault it. Moving the wine barrel without delaying, seeing the handsome guy, Zhang Yi unconsciously blew a rogue whistle. Oh, I think it's the best without looking at my face. Ruananan's ears were working right now, and immediately opened his eyes and looked in her direction. But she was too drunk to stand up, still leaning on Zhang Yi. You wait a moment. Ruananan started to have double images in front of her eyes. She was lying on Zhang Yi's shoulder. Although her brain was chaotic, she still squinted and looked at the people standing not far away. What's wrong? The shoulders are wide, the legs are long, and the skin is beautiful. How do you look more and more like that? Zhang Yi rolled her eyes, what are you doing? Ruananan blinked and reached out his hand, that person seems to be my husband. Zhang Yi gritted her teeth, your sister's Ruananan. Did you make up a husband for yourself? You are single. She leaned to Ruananan's ear and shouted, you are a single nobleman. Did you hear that? Ruananan obviously didn't listen, she asked, you don't believe it? Zhang Yi didn't speak, and didn't want to argue with the drunk over logic. But Ruananan thought she really didn't believe it, so he was anxious on the spot, you really don't believe it? Ruananan stopped slowly moving, propped up the seat and tried to open his eyes, pulling Zhang Yi's face and reaching out and pointing tremblingly, vaguely but extremely stubbornly, look carefully, that's my husband. You. Look at how up his is. Chiao 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 knows chiao chiao all day long. What kind of female lunatic is this? Zhang Yi was angry and tired, dizzy, and didn't know where she got her strength. With a strain, she fixed Ruananan's arm to her shoulder, and put her mouth half dragging in a daze. The drunkard shouting my husband was taken away from the VIP channel. Behind the two, the man just discussed happened to turn his head. Although it was noisy near the bar, he seemed to have heard a particularly familiar voice just now. Where the sound came, it was obviously the back of the two girls, one seemed to be very drunk, and his whole body weight was leaning on the other. The one who was drunk was wearing a short skirt. His exposed legs were white and slender. The design of the skirt made the waist look full and gripped, which was particularly eye-catching under the light of the bar. Guju hesitated, then took out his mobile phone to enter WeChat, and clicked into Ruananan's circle of friends. She just posted one an hour ago, and the picture is a thick teaching aid book, with the words, so fulfilling. He raised his hand and rubbed his eyebrows. Sure enough, I heard it wrong. Not to mention anything else, even the clothes are so different, is this the fuck? Goo dog? What are you looking at? Someone behind him called him. Hearing this, Guju retracted his gaze. Guju walked back to the other end of the bar, and the silhouette under the light was more handsome. He took a sip from his glass, shook his head and said, "It's okay, I've admitted the wrong person." Of course, Ruonan's class the next day was skipped. As soon as she opened her eyes, she sat up abruptly, and then saw the wall clock on the wall indicating that it was a little past. She suddenly lost the thought of getting up and fell back. Ruonanan has always had a low amount of alcohol, but because he knows how to drink, he usually doesn't drink too much, but this time I am so happy. Just remember to make an analysis with Yin Yuan, and analyze that Guju Chwibi is interesting to her, and afterwards she was drunk and didn't remember anything at all. Ruonanan's head hurts a bit, and she lay down and touched her phone to reply to the message. Scrolling down next to each other, finally arrived at the smelly sister army. Zhang Yi sent a piece of news in a row, and the time was very concentrated, all at 10:30 in the evening. Zhang Yi doesn't eat ginger, enough, my fucking. Ruonanan? Zhang Yi doesn't eat ginger, Ruonanan, feel your conscience and ask yourself, you fucking. How hungry are you? Ruonanan. Enough him. Ruonanan stared at the line for a long time, staring at the Huangtongdi Sun expression, even this expression seemed to mock her. Heaven and earth, when you see a handsome guy with a cocky butt, you say it's your husband? Has her obsession with Guju reached this level? To be honest, Ruonanan couldn't tell what she was feeling. Her fingers trembled, and she didn't know what to reply to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi should not lie, and in the face of such humiliating facts, she has no idea. Excuse. Finally, I imagined how she was sent back by Zhang Yi when she was so drunk, and she had no idea of speaking at all. Rather than trying to calm Zhang Yi with words, it is more realistic to give her some global bar black card in the future. The group was full of words accusing her of crimes, and Ruonanan didn't even watch it a second time, and quickly cut out. It was discovered that just now, there were two more news. Chu Yan, Chu Yan, Chu Yan, Ruonanan was stunned when he saw you didn't come at the same table, but when he went down to this emoji, he laughed in an instant. Chu Yan saw that neither of them went to class, and thought she had made an appointment with Guju to do something. Ruonanan smiled and replied that she was late, and sent another emoticon package. And next, probably her finger had her own thoughts, and when she reacted, she was already on the WeChat interface for chatting with Guju. Guju's WeChat name is GJ. Ruonanan hasn't changed his remarks yet, mainly because she is afraid that she will put on a cropped butt and be seen by him in class. That's not good. Speaking of it, in the week they added WeChat, the two had never chatted yet, but the circle of friends would like it. For example, Ruonanan sent him a circle of friends last night, and it didn't take him long. Liked. Ruonanan leaned back on the bed and turned over, say something. She looked at the beautiful hand in that avatar, wondering how to send him a message, euphemistically asking why you didn't go to class today, but a message popped out of the originally blank dialog box. Saying that CAO had arrived, Ruonanan was so scared that he almost threw the phone out. When she settled down, she looked down. GJ, fuck, why the is sending a voice message directly? And it's a full 15 seconds. Ruonanan bit his lip, took a deep breath before tapping the voice, and then immediately put the phone to his ear. I didn't go to class today. Guju's voice was slightly mute, with the nasal sound of first awakening, and his ears seemed to be electromagnetic. It's actually nothing, he said casually. I just don't think I can see you today. I'm not used to it. I just feel like I won't see you today. Not used to it. Ruonanan's phone really fell this time and fell into the quilt. She was dumbfounded, her heartbeat stopped for a moment, and then began to bounce at a very high frequency, as if even the blood was getting hot. Ruonanan finally chose a recent selfie that Zhang didn't send to Moments and posted it. The dress suits her personality when she usually goes to school and perfectly interprets the 5 words of pure and pure white flowers. In the next few minutes, she listened to the 15-second voice again and again, still feeling dissatisfied, and ordered collection. The smelly sister army also got new news, and it was Yin Yuan who woke up. Ruonanan didn't care about anything else. She was on her head and immediately retold the matter briefly and sent it to the group. "Come on, let me translate for you," Yin Yuan said. What he meant, it's actually only 5 words. Ruonanan and Ruan, which 5? Yin Yuan sent another voice. "I miss you." Ruonanan completely bowed under this interpretation, and his voice of "ow" fell back into the quilt. At the same time, inside Mingchen's apartment on the other side. On the screen of the phone is a young girl, her beige jacket makes her gentle, her naturally straight long hair is draped over her shoulders, her face is pure and beautiful, and her slightly curved apricot eyes are gleaming and brilliant. Guju watched for a long time before clicking save. After thinking about it, I set this picture as the chat background. Then he got up and walked to the cat basket in the living room. He sat directly on the carpet. Before he could say anything, the orange cat, which had been lying motionless in the nest, crawled out slowly, very consciously. The cat is very cute, but there is a white eye at the corner of the eye, which is a scar that will never grow hair again. Compared with the ordinary orange cat, it looks very iconic with this scar. Guju said, "Stupid." With a move of the orange cat's ears, he rubbed against his leg. Guju sighed, "This is the name she gave you." The orange cat rolled over on the ground. Guju sighed, "Then I use your microcredit as your profile picture, and she doesn't remember you anymore." The orange cat meowed a little. "You said you would follow her," Guju smiled and scratched his chin. The orange cat squinted comfortably under his slender fingers. "It's all so stupid, hey." Ruonanan didn't go to class on Friday, and the next 2 days were weekends. Not seeing Guju for 3 days in a row is really not a normal emptiness and loss. She hasn't been idle on weekends, and basically spends most of the day in the company, which was clearly arranged by Lao Lin. But fortunately, the busy time always flies quickly. On Sunday night, Ruonanan took a shower and climbed into the bed to prepare to surf the internet. Unexpectedly, it was Guju who rushed over first. He even asked her if she would like to have breakfast together tomorrow morning. In fact, Ruonanan didn't eat breakfast. She didn't eat much when she was at Harvard. Sometimes, if it was too irregular, she would have an outbreak of stomach problems, and she has developed a habit. But this was asked by the ass. Must eat. So this action directly led to the 2 people appearing in the cafeteria for 4 consecutive days, and the forum has related posts every day. Number today is so ordinary. Wow, it's soy milk fritters, can I have fairy love if I eat the same thing? Number that pair of exchange students come to the cafeteria again. Crazy sneak shot. Number isn't that pair of people going to the cafeteria every day this week? Just now the ant sighed with emotion that there are more people eating breakfast this week. Alright, ha 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 ha, that's me. Number. From the very beginning, the 2 exchange students have become the pair of exchange students, which is really gratifying. Until Friday. Friday's class is in the afternoon, so naturally there is no such thing as having breakfast together. Ruonanan took a nap at noon, arrived in the classroom early, and began to build herself psychologically. Ruonanan always remembered the conversation he had with Yin Yuan that day before Va was drunk, and remembered the voice that Guju had heard hundreds of times a week, including this week's breakfast. All the clues all pointed to one. In conclusion, Kocht is interesting to her. Ruonanan thought for several days. Although he always felt that what he had come up with was a bad idea, it could always play a role in suggesting something to him. After she sat in the classroom for a while, the actor came, and the original idea in her brain was formatted the moment she saw the actor. It is said that people are immune to beauty, no matter how good-looking people look at it, they won't be surprised. But Ruonanen now extremely doubts whether this theory holds. Why doesn't she get tired of this person's face? Why is it still as amazing as the first time? Ruonanen pretended to greet him calmly, and then said unintentionally, I found that you seem to like this shirt. Hey! Gujwaren was still leaning against the wall, pulling his collar like that. This action was inexplicably shameless by him, this one. Ruonanen nodded. When she saw him for the first time, he was wearing this white shirt, and she didn't know how he could wear such a simple shirt so handsomely. Guju smiled. He didn't argue or was sure. He took a piece of candy from his pocket and threw it on Ruonanen's table. Today's. Ruonanen is also used to this operation. Since the last mint candy, Guju began to change the pattern and brand, and gave her a piece of candy a day, and it turned out to be delicious. Today is strawberry flavor. Ruonanen put the sugar in his mouth and opened the conversation according to his original idea, suddenly remembered. I had a friend before. Guju was taken aback for a moment, and then he reacted extremely cooperatively, well, what's the matter? She has a little brother who grew up with her childhood sweetheart. The two are neighbors. My friend found out that she liked that little brother on the first day of the junior high, but she never said because the little brother seemed to have a little interest in her. So she feels that the two of them have always been in a happy state. Until later, she didn't go to high school with the bamboo horse, and it didn't take long for the little brother to fall in love with someone else. From the beginning to the end, it was my friend's own thought. She thought that boy was in love with her, but in fact, the boy really doesn't have that kind of thought. So later, when the boy said he regarded her as a friend, she was angry and sad. This is not fabricated, this is actually Yan Yuan's personal experience. Ruonanen and Zhang Yi heard Yan Yuan talk about them in the dormitory of high school, and they comforted her at that moment. Who the wants to be friends with him? Yan Yuan was still young, crying and said, I used to get up at 5 in the morning to line up for him to buy his favorite Xiaolong Bao. My old lady wanted to be his friend. Later, Yan Yuan also talked with a few boyfriends, but they didn't seem to be distracted, so now the WeChat name has also changed arrogantly to Yan Yuan no marriage. Ruonanen recalled the past, and then made a concluding remark, in fact, there is no one who is right or wrong. I said so much because I suddenly wanted to say. She paused, not knowing why, her voice was a little lacking in confidence, you know, it is usually difficult for men and women to have pure friendship. Ruonanen swallowed silently, but still didn't have the courage to say the words in his heart like me. I just want to soak you. Ruonanen had said such a big deal. Guju watched her silently, her eyes were slightly bright, and her expression did not change, but the corners of her lips seemed to have a less obvious curvature, which softened the outline of his whole person. She stared at his face as if she had been poisoned. She didn't know what she was talking about, as if the word friend was at the beginning. But the expression of the person in front of him was a little subtle, and he turned to laugh, as if he had heard some joke. Guju raised his eyebrows slightly, who said I am friends with you? Ruonan's eyes widened sharply. After saying this, his eyes were not the same as usual. The thin lips were lightly opened, and the speaking speed was also very slow, accompanied by a fresh and good mint smell lingering between the two of them. I really don't have much experience in this area, but I don't think you would think that way. Guju's eyebrows were a little helpless, and the corners of his eyes were slightly bent, as if they were filled with light. He sighed and said with a smile, I thought it was obvious what I was chasing. Ruonanen only tasted the mash in his mouth until he tasted it. It was not only strawberries, but also a bit of milky aroma, with the unique greasy sweetness. Speaking of the word chase, Ruonanen has indeed had a lot of experience of being pursued, but he has never had any suitor. He chased her and told her, hey, I'm chasing you, isn't it obvious enough? Zhang Yi was right, this man was too good at it. Ruonanen looked at the person in front of him, and forgot to blink his eyes. Ruonanen has always had no definition or concept of her appearance, but she always heard Zhang Yi and Yan Yuan say that boys like her model. She looks pure, beautiful, and very suitable for a crush on a first love face, a word of praise. There are only a few back and forth. She accepted a lot of confessions, and the little boys in middle and high school were also innocent, and it was enough to blush for 3 minutes by calling Ruonanan or classmate Ruan. How can I meet such a person? So. Ruonanan didn't know how to describe Guju, a single word didn't seem appropriate. Guju is a proper campus male in appearance. He is more handsome than a celebrity, talks less, and never sleeps in the morning class, but no matter how sleepy he is, he still has the ability to fly. At first glance, it looks like a college student with a very pure temperament. If you get in touch with it, it will be a cool but candy-loving handsome ratio, but in fact, this person is especially good at teasing. It's complicated and attractive. The more I understand, the more I like it, which is probably how Ruonanan feels now. At the beginning, she came to see university, and when she arrived in his class, she had the pure desire to get close to him. But on the way to recognize and understand him step by step, he also fell bit by bit. It's only half a month from the beginning of school. Although Ruonanan sometimes recognizes those careful thoughts, the time is too short, so Guju actually didn't plan to confess now. But just now I couldn't control this sentence and said it. After all, watching her bend around a lot just to test his appearance, it's so cute, I can't help it. Guju wanted to clarify his thoughts with her, but he found that the little girl seemed particularly surprised, her eyes filled with water, and there was no movement for a long time. What's the matter? You don't need to answer anything. He wasn't sure if he was too inexperienced, really surprised. No, Ruonanan said slowly, I was thinking. Guju, hey. Actually, what you said about chasing or not, seems to be quite unobvious. The little girl's ears are all red, and she pursed her lips. If you can be more obvious, it's not impossible. Can. Guju. Her expression is obviously shy. But his eyes clearly wrote expecting 2 characters, for fear that he would not see it. It's more obvious. Let's go. Guju nodded, speaking at a slower rate, and said every word, I'll work hard to catch up. When Ruonanan got home, the phone was shaking in his bag. She touched it out and saw an incoming call from an unfamiliar number jumping on the screen. There are very few people who know Ruonanan's mobile phone number in China, and they are basically familiar with it. They rarely receive calls from strangers or advertisements. But she didn't hesitate for too long, swiping the screen to pick up, Hello. Anan, it's me. Ruonanan was taken aback for a moment, and when he reacted, he wanted to hang up the phone immediately. And the other side seemed to have expected something, and said quickly, Don't hang up, you first listen to me and finish. Ruonanan took a deep breath and cried, Dad. She even smiled, You call me so often, do you want to kill me? She seemed to be choked over there, and there was no sound for a long time. The two sides were in a stalemate, and Ruonanan heard a sigh. She didn't want to ask questions like How did you know that I returned to China? Ruonanan grabbed the phone with her finger tightly, Since I'm answering it now, let's talk on the phone if I have something to do. An. The familiar voice came out, I haven't seen you for 3 years, let's go home. The voice was obviously hoarse and uncomfortable to hear. Ruonanan suddenly felt unable to tell. Guju's words kept her in a very excited state in the afternoon, but this call seemed to be poisonous, and the happiness before it disappeared in an instant. She whispered, That's your home, not my home. There was no sound, nor did you hang up the phone. Forget it. Ruonanan squinted his eyes, took another deep breath, and exhaled, I will go over now, I will not eat or stay overnight. I will leave when I see it. It is good. Ruan's villa is more than half an hour's drive away from Ximingsu. Villa district is opposite the Linjiang mansion, the most expensive residence in the city. The location is very good. The car couldn't get in due to security reasons. Ruonanen paid and got off the car, leaning on his legs and walking 11th Road for 10 minutes to the entrance of Ruan's villa. It was 3 years ago when she came back last time, but after all the places she lived in were familiar, she stepped through the door and walked in. Nguyen's background is not that good. If you want to talk about the advantages, you may only have a word of stability. Almost no risk-related business, striving for success in a stable manner. Although it has not been successful in these years, it can be regarded as futile. In Qingcheng, the position of the Ruan family is not embarrassing or awkward. Compared with ordinary families, but compared with Lin Gu's family, it is the difference between branches and leaves and towering old trees. The moment Ruonanen stepped into the living room, a female voice came into his ears, and every sentence was accompanied by a tone, which was extremely sweet and greasy. Also very familiar. Well, I have come back from France with my mother a long time ago, because school has started. Yet, I also signed up for the Game Cup. The most powerful student in our class is with me. It's really a shame if you don't join. When will you come to my house to play? My mother. This time I went to Fashion Week and brought you a small gift, nothing special, just a bracelet, not expensive, not expensive. By the way, Kikai told me that the second son of the Gu family is back, but I haven't seen the photo, it's so mysterious. Dear, do you know him? No, oh, don't talk nonsense. I don't even know him, I just listened to it, I was curious. Ruonanen leaned at the door, watching her nominal stepsister holding a phone and blowing water. Ruan Lin, the daughter of the Ruan family, looks sweet, but is too petty to make it to the table, and she is also a small celebrity in the circle of celebrities. In contrast, Ruonanen found no such person. Therefore, after she attended Zhang Yi's birthday party, a bunch of young ladies secretly investigated her, and they were all wondering where the sacred could be to hook Miss Zhang directly. Ruonanen was just a cut scene when he came here. He was still thinking about whether to avoid her or simply ignore her and go upstairs. He didn't know why. After listening to these words accidentally, he couldn't help but laugh. Ruan Lin, who was on the phone, turned her head back, her expression froze from the original doubt for a moment. Ruonanen laughed, still finding it funny. She entered the house and stepped forward and said, "Why, the last time I came back, you still liked Zhang Yi's brother. This time I changed to this mysterious second son Gu? Whoever you are, you like." Ruonanen. Ruan Lin first muttered in a low voice, then widened her eyes as if suddenly awakened. Ruonanen? Why are you back? Oh, you also know that my surname is Ruan, so why can't I return? But Ruonanen raised an eyebrow. This is indeed not the place I am willing to go back. Ruan Lin walked up to her in a few steps, seeming to think she was particularly unreasonable. Don't come back if you don't want to. Why do you still appear here? Didn't you walk very smartly at the beginning? Never leave if you have the ability. Come back. Ruonanen did move away a few years ago. If dad doesn't love his mother, there is only a pair of mother and daughter with big faces who drag themselves into 2 to 80,000 all day long. Since there are conditions to go, is it a fool or a nasty critic if you don't go? She is not Xian Durula, as long as she has the opportunity, she can't get along with the vicious mother and stepsister for a day. However, in this story, Lin Songbei is probably the fairy godmother, and the vicious stepsister and stepmother do not know her relationship with Lin Songbei from start to finish. It's not clean. Actually, if you regret it, you can just say it directly. Don't you just want to come back to live again? It doesn't take a lot of trouble. My mother and I won't be unwelcome. Why bother to make it so ugly with me? Do you have a lot of luggage? If you want to move back, just ask Uncle Chen to help you. Sorry, Uncle Chen is a new driver, and I don't know you yet, so I'll take you there. Ruan Lin was still pressing, her speech slowed down, every word was suggesting, and the more she spoke, the more superior she felt. She turned around and left after she said it. Ruoninen's lips were flat, and she grabbed her arm. When Ruonlin turned her head, her triumphant expression was still on her face, her arrogance. Ruoninen firmly grasped her with one hand to prevent her from breaking free, unlocked the phone with the other hand, and flipped down the missed calls. Then he lifted it up, almost stunned before Ruonlin's eyes, telling her to watch even if she didn't. One by one, all read missed calls. Ruonlin naturally knew that number. It was the person who kindly noted Dad in her address book. I have been abroad for the past 3 years. From my return to China to today, Ruan Zheng has called me no less than 40 calls. Ruoninen said, Ruonlin, you are like your mother as a treasure, and you depend on the Ruan family. I just leave. You still don't understand it today. Do you really think I'm rare? Ruonlin's smile disappeared a long time ago. Her nails were deeply pinched into the heart of her hands, she only felt like a layer of fire on her face, and her face was aching. Ruoninen's voice is a standard girly voice, sweet and nice when she is happy, but when she calms down, it is just as powerful. Seeing the increasingly stiff expressions of the people in front of him, Ruoninen retracted his phone, standing relaxed, with a smile, I want to be clean, who is asking who to come back, et. Shut up! Ruonlin saw her eyes bursting into flames, but she trembled with anger because she couldn't find any rebuttals for a while. Of course Ruonainen will not shut up, although your mother seems to be able to hook men to likes, there are no other abilities and talents. Seeing Ruonlin's increasingly stinky face, Ruonainen smiled tisk, but you don't have to go her way. Today you want to catch young Master Zhang and you want to hook young Master Gu tomorrow. Girl, better on your own. The plastic father-daughter talk lasted for more than 20 minutes that day, which was not as impressive as Ruonlin's stinky face. However, Ruonainen felt that when he returned home, Ruonlin was almost mad, and it was quite profitable. This weekend, Ruonainen has a little bit of what Guju calls try hard to catch up. Sooner or later, the thunderous good morning and good night, 3 meals changed to remind her to pay attention to the regular diet, and in the same way, asked her for a selfie. Because of this, even though Ruonainen has been in the company on weekends, there is a sweet illusion every day that he spends it in a chat with Guju. On the first quarter of Monday, Ruonainen arrived at the door of the classroom and saw a person standing at the back door from a distance. Guju leaned against the wall to look at the phone, his eyelids drooped, and occasionally raised his hand to touch the back of his neck, looking sleepy and not awake. Ruoninen's heartbeat speeded up all of a sudden, and his pace became faster unconsciously. When he was still a few meters away, Guju looked at her as if he heard a sound. As he approached, Ruonainen felt a little strange. Why are you standing at the door? Because today's class is not here. Ruonainen, hey. Today is in the computer room. Guju smiled and put away his phone, but I guess you didn't read the class schedule, so I'm waiting for you to go there with you. The way he leaned against the wall and laughed at her was simply overwhelming. Ruonainen suddenly thought of a sentence jokingly said by someone in the forum: Guju could not laugh at a second, and Guju would not laugh early. It really is. Ruonainen blinked and changed the subject. What were you playing just now? Games. Guju, well, self-closing eliminates happiness. Ruonainen. No wonder I heard an unbelievable. The two walked side by side in the direction of the computer room, and they kept collecting eye-catching gifts along the way. This session is a simulation training class related to the Game Cup, which is prepared for the enrolled students of the Department of Economics and Management. To be honest, Ruonainen didn't intend to take this Game Cup very seriously, but if she was aroused by any incentive, it would be like a completely different person. For example, she now knows that Ruonlin is going to compete this year, so she really wants to hang a champion on it and show Hanin who is the father. After the two entered the door, Chu Yan waved at her, and Ruonainen led him to the large group. The team members had already met formally last week. Except for Chu Yan, one is called Lian Hao and the other is called Chen Song. The two boys she brought together with her were three life treasures. In other words, they were actually three sand sculptures. Ruan Anan has reservations about Chu Yan's previous statement that the three of us are doing well in learning, but the atmosphere in the group is indeed very good. A few people greeted him, and Chen Song said, "Hey, I have a good brother." He said that he had a thigh in his arms back then, but the competition was too fierce and the competition was so fierce that he didn't make the top 100 in the end. Regret, I thought it was easy for the first 100, and even the first 50 can make a rush. When Chen Song said this, even Hao and Chu Yan looked at her speechlessly. You don't believe you are stupid? Lian Hao shook his head, the east is not bright, the west is bright, what kind of nay criticism you are? Chu Yan, top 50? Are we worthy? You can dream more and more, old Chen. The three of them are very small and show no mercy. Ruan Anan thought that Chen Song was very funny about Baba, and said casually, it's not necessarily. Why do you think so? I think the top 50 is fine. I even want to be number 1. She added in her heart. Chen Song's eyes were bright, and the other two were dumbfounded. Then Ruan Anan heard Guju next to him and said, well, I also feel relaxed. Lian Hao and Chu Yan looked at each other. When it was over, there were 3 dreamers in their group. After 5 minutes of class, Ruan Anan understood. The teacher of this class is passionate. It's been a long time since Ruan Anan has been in college for a long time to meet a teacher who has such an abundance of emotion in lectures and who has spared no effort to exaggerate. For example, now, teacher believes in you. As long as you work hard, you will be rewarded. Not me, every student in our class may be in the top 100 in the country. Ruan Anan. I think you are blowing. There is still an hour and a half to end the get out of class. Let's have enough time to do a complete simulation exercise to open it as I said. After the teacher finished speaking, proceed to the topic. The popularity of the gaming cup is not only related to its authority, but also to its game mode. Gaming cup is like a business game, the core is to run a company. It can be more different from the game, such as extremely close to the real stock market data, everything is random, real-time changes and refreshes, there is no strategy to follow, and no information to check. It is not only the knowledge that students have learned, but also the mind, intuition, and keen judgment. Simulation is also one of the important reasons why it has been authoritative for so many years. More than 10 years ago, when all examinations and competitions were written, the game cup that turned out to attract people's attention with its novel and unique model, and major companies are also particularly interested. After all, even among top students, there are still many people who have mastered theoretical knowledge but cannot apply it well. With the holding of each session and the improvement of technology, the real-time data of the Game Cup is getting closer and closer to reality. In order to prepare students in advance, generations of simulators have also been developed early. The small copy given in this lesson is actually very simple. There is no need to consider other aspects. Simply wanting to exercise students' ability to invest in stocks is also a way to adapt to this model in advance. Ruan Anan looked at the numbers that were constantly jumping in front of him, analyzed it up and down, and knew almost everything in his mind, which was completely different from most of the other students who kept saying, "How do you buy this?" When she does something serious, she doesn't care much about her surroundings. Naturally, she doesn't know that someone around her has been staring at her. Guju didn't think too much at the beginning, but he felt that he wanted to see her approximate level and how many points she could get. She seemed to be a little bit less than her. After all, Ruan Anan is a player who never takes notes and doesn't seem to attend class. The book is still brand new, only half a month after school. He was afraid that in case she would be put on the bottom, the score would be cast on the screen and be executed publicly, and he would be able to back it up. I have talked about chasing people, this is still something to be done. Guju played this thing as a game, and I was a little tired of playing it abroad before, and I just looked at it. He randomly lit his side while observing Ruonanen's screen, but he didn't expect to see the more he was surprised. After 1 hour, when the reunification was terminated, many students sighed like a survivor. Some felt that it was fun and wanted to continue playing. Some felt that this thing was too cheating, and there was also a passion for discussing when to buy which shares and when to resell. Excellent solution. Ruonanen moved his finger, turned his head to ask how Guju was feeling. The teacher in front of him suddenly heard student Ruonanen with machine number 035. Ruonanen moved for a while. Everyone's eyes are looking towards themselves. Student Ruonanen. Look, everyone, this student's score is very high. It is already close to full marks, and it is our highest score in this exercise. Hearing this very emotional roll call, Ruonanen's eyelids twitched, with an unknown premonition. It just happens that there are 4 or 5 minutes left, the teacher said with a kind face. Student Ruonanen, how do you usually study? Can you come up and teach you some experience? Ruonanen was stunned for a moment because he hadn't experienced this kind of coming up to share learning experience in too many years. She reacted and was about to tactfully refuse. The sand sculpture trio in front of her was already on her head, and she took the lead and clapped her hands. Okay. Then the whole class started booing and applauding for some reason. In the chaos, she found that Guju was also joining in the fun, and winked at her. Ruonanen bit his scalp and walked up, standing on the podium, looking at the curious eyes of the people below, like thorns on his back. Student Ruonanen, you can start. After the teacher had finished speaking, those people were spurred by another burst of applause. Ruonanen. What the fuck? Thank you for the prosperous years of studying at Harvard.